Good evening. I'll call to order this Tuesday, May 26th meeting of the Fairfield Plan and Zoning Commission. We'll start with our meeting minutes from May 12th. Could I please have a motion on the item? Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Levy moves to approve. Second. Posey seconds. Commissioner Levy.
As amended, they look to be in order.
Commissioner Posey.
No further comments.
Commissioner Braun.
I have a correction on the item called request to accept off-site below market rate units. I seem to recall it was not unanimous, that it was a 4-3 vote in favor of denying the applicant the off-site ownership affordable units.
Correct. That's what it says.
It says unanimous to deny the request. But I believe
But it said as amended.
Yeah. And it was
changed this
amended.
afternoon.
Right. So the original had that, Commissioner Levy had indicated the motion was to approve as amended, and the amendment has the correct vote with 4 in favor and 3 opposed.
And was that circulated?
Emailed it to everyone.
I believe I voted against denying. I voted against denying it.
Yep, that's reflected in the amended version.
This said the amended. We have new
Yes.
amendments.
The amendment, I'll just read it, Commissioner Braun.
Okay.
The amendment says, Mr. Levy moved, seconded by Mr. Randolph to deny the request. The motion passed by a vote of 4-3, and the request was denied. In favor of denying the request, Porcillo, Randolph, Levy, Delgado. Opposed to denying the request, Posey, Monahan, Braun.
I just downloaded these minutes today. Where are these posted somewhere? These updated minutes?
They're in the folder. They were circulated by email.
Today?
Yes.
Okay, that's why I didn't get it. Thanks.
Any other comments?
No.
All those in favor of the motion to approve as amended, please raise your hand. Say aye. Commissioner, thank you. Motion passes unanimously, and I apologize. I should have called this out sooner. Commissioner Randolph is not present today, so Commissioner Huntley will be seated for him. And the next item is an executive session, and Commissioner Braun, I know you're recused on this, so for the purpose of voting to go into session, Commissioner Churchill will sit for Commissioner Braun on this item. So this is an executive session, Stilson LLC versus P&Z Shapiro Commons 19 unit, and Stilson LLC versus P&Z Shapiro Commons 60 unit 830G. I'll request a motion to enter executive session and to invite Attorney Piers and Ms. Harrigan and Mr. Mullen. Commissioner Levy.
To enter into executive session along with Attorney Piers and staff.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Any questions, comments? All those in favor of the motion to enter executive session with Attorney Piers, Ms. Harrigan, and Mr. Mullen, please raise your hand. Thank you. Folks, we will leave the room for a few minutes and we'll be back shortly.
It's in the conference room?
Our usual conference room.
The appeal, which brings us before you tonight for the 5-year extension.
Thank you. Motion on the item, please. Commissioner Levy.
Move to extend the 5 years from the to September 23rd, 2031.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy moves to approve the 5-year extension. Do I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Anything further?
Yeah, I mean, this was an interesting one, which we figured out how to figure out the setback lines on the beach and they appealed, so finally it might get developed.
Commissioner Capozzi,
I agree with Commissioner Lee.
Can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
anything further from the commission? All those in favor of the motion to approve the 5-year extension request, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have a coastal site plan application for 139 James Street, an application of Cole AC Construction LLC for a coastal site plan review for demolition of an existing single-family house and construction of a new FEMA compliant single-family house in a residence B zone. Mr. Mullen, will you be reading your staff recommendations?
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, that's it.
So included, good evening, everybody. Jonathan Mullen, Assistant Planning Director, Fairfield. Also included this, and this time is we've included a new section for findings. State statute requires that we read findings into the record, so I'll read the findings and then I'll read the conditions of approval for 139 James Street. Finding number 1, the entire site is located in the AE 11 flood zone. Number 2, the town of Fairfield Planning Department has reviewed this proposal and provided conditions of approval. Number 3, the state of Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection reviewed the proposal and provided a letter dated May 19th, 2026, indicating that the proposal is consistent with the Connecticut Coastal Management Act. Number 4, if all conditions provided are followed, the proposal is consistent with the the Connecticut Coastal Management Act and will not adversely impact coastal resources. Conditions of approval are, staff recommends the following conditions in approving this coastal area management plan project. Number 1, soil erosion and sedimentation controls shall be installed and maintained during the entirety of the construction project at the subject site.
Motion on the item, Commissioner Levy.
Move to adopt the findings of staff as those of the commission and to approve the coastal site plan application is consistent with the act as long as they comply with staff conditions regarding erosion control.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy moves to approve with staff recommendations and to adopt the findings. Commissioner, do I have a second? Commissioner Braun?
Second.
Braun seconds. Thank you. Any additional comments, Commissioner Levy?
None.
Commissioner Braun, comments?
So I just want to point out that the DP is on board with this, and also there's a reduction in impervious surface, and it's quite a ways away from any tidal wetland.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve with staff recommendations and adopted findings, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mullen. Next, we move on to old business. There's the first item was labeled inaccurately and will need a motion to amend the item to reflect the correct item. So the item that should be labeled 3A, I'll read it, is a zoning regulation amendment and application by Attorney Christopher Russo on behalf of 1477 Congress Street LLC for a proposed new section 10.19 age restricted housing district within the design residence district to permit an age restricted multifamily development of no more than 5 dwelling units per acre on sites that are a minimum of 1 acre and located within 1,500 feet of an on-ramp to the Merritt Parkway, provides proposed application requirements and site plan standards. I have a motion to amend the agenda to reflect the correct item. Commissioner Braun?
I move to amend the agenda, basically, where I guess we're switching 2 applications by Attorney Russo for 2 different regulations. So that's the switch we're doing, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Thank you. Commissioner Braun moves to amend as indicated. Do I have a second? Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Anything further, Commissioner Braun?
No.
Commissioner Capozzi,
Nothing further.
comments? All those in favor of the motion to amend the agenda, which does require a 2/3 vote, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we will hear the correct item, which again is an application by attorney Chris Russo on behalf of 1477 Congress Street LLC for a proposed new section 10.19 age restricted housing district within the design residence district to permit an age restricted multifamily development of no more than 5 dwelling units per acre on sites that are a minimum of 1 acre and located within 1,500 feet of an on-ramp to the Merritt Parkway. Provides proposed application requirements and site plan standards. Can I please have a motion on the item? Commissioner Braun.
Motion to deny. For motion to deny.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun moves to deny. Commissioner Capozzi seconds. Thank you. Commissioner Braun.
Okay, so there's many things wrong with this, but I'll just try to go through the criteria we usually set. Is it consistent with the plan of conservation and development? I do not believe it is. The POCD had areas, which I actually didn't agree with at the time, but it has areas where the POCD guides us towards more density, and this was not one of those areas. Has it been demonstrated that this is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? I do not. I'm sorry. Number 2 is, do time and experience and responsible planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed amendment? While it is true, it would be nice to have more senior and disabled housing. This is not the place to do it. And with real estate and land use planning, it really is all about location. This is completely the wrong place for this. Number 3, has it been demonstrated that it is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town? I would say no. It would add a lot of density. And frankly, if it ever lost the federal requirement under the HOPA law, then we would simply have density without affordability. It also does not even go with our affordability requirements that we have in our existing DRD regulations. It puts a whole lot of density up by the headwaters of Mill River. And it seems to rely on communal septic, which is a huge concern for me because Mill River is the largest river in our town. It does flow out into South Port Harbor. And I think we have to be very cautious. Also, it seems to rely upon only doing concept reviews and having discretionary public hearings. That's a huge problem for me. We need site-specific, project-specific reviews for everything. And we really do need, in order to properly evaluate any application or even this regulation, we need to know more specifics. And that my interpretation of the law is that we're entitled to do that even on an 830G. This is not 830G. So we need more specifics before we can even contemplate the harm that could be done by an application such as this, which would allow on this site, the 1477 Congress Street, by my calculation, 27 bedrooms on communal septic, probably. It's too much. Only one person in an undefined family with unrelated people would have to be over 55 years old. So it really does not pass the test for health and safety, and it also does not really necessarily guarantee us affordability. And would this protect number 4, would this protect the property values in the neighborhood to advance the community and accomplish a transition in character? I do not believe it will do so. I believe it's way too much density for the most rural part of our town north of the Parkway. And would number 5, would it permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? I believe it would, but there's been no study, so it's hard to tell. There are huge issues with traffic coming down. We've already got one approval for, I think, 92 units north of the Parkway for an 830G. There's another one on the other side for 200 units or so, which I believe might be on appeal. So this will not help that situation. It's an extremely narrow, winding, hilly road that approaches Easton. So I think on all counts, this does not pass any of our criteria for doing a text amendment to our zoning regulations.
Anything further, Commissioner Braun?
No.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Capozzi?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Commissioner Braun said, and I still don't understand the need for this commission to impose any kind of a zoning regulation on an age-restricted housing district when a developer can just set up the HOA and record it that way on their own. We don't need to intervene in that way. And to reiterate Commissioner Braun's point, I really find it problematic to try to build a development of this sort on a communal septic system when there are other locations in this town that are served by sewer. The report that Attorney Russo shared with us on the communal septic system was really one that was created in advocacy for such a situation in towns where a town public sewer system was not available. So I just don't feel that this is the right place, the right time, the right zone for this. And again, I agree with everything Commissioner Braun said.
Thank you. Commissioner Monahan.
To echo the two commissioners' comments, in addition, half of this lot is in the flood zone. A septic system in the flood zone is also problematic, even though we don't have all the data on that. Also, the Merritt Park Conservancy, I believe that, their statements on this topic opposing it, should also be acknowledged. And reiterating the commentary about the 55, and older development, nothing in the plan shows that it would be for 55 and older. One person could be 55 and older. There were no wider hallways, first floor bedrooms and the like. So I think this was just a way to try to get it passed in a seemingly positive manner when at the end of the day, that was not very likely not going to be the people living in the.
Thank you. Commissioner Braun, I'll come back to you after.
Okay, sure.
Yes, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, I think there's a text amendment in Wolf's Clothing. This is not an appropriate site for senior citizen housing. I mean, I would support allowing a greater density in an appropriately designed either cluster type housing, but one that the septic systems could support. And this is not the way to do that.
Commissioner Delgado.
I feel like we're doing a lot to simplify the zoning code and create consistent regulations, and I don't think that this amendment helps to further that. And I don't think that this is an appropriate location.
Thank
for
you.
additional density.
Commissioner Huntley, anything to add?
Yeah, kind of just what everyone else has already said. I think it's.
I agree. I think this, I don't think anyone could accuse this commission of being against reasonable housing development, but this is certainly not sound planning in practice. I think this applicant started with a development and tried to retcon a zoning framework and did not do an especially good job of it. I think we certainly need senior housing, various types of housing options for seniors, but I think this is just such a poorly thought out way to do it, a piecemeal approach. And I think in addition to what others have said, agree with Commissioner Delgado that we're trying to create more housing flexibility while also simplifying our overly complicated zoning code. And I think this takes us a step backward in that effort. So I will also be opposing this. And Commissioner Braun, back to you.
I just wanted to point out that when we wear our planning hats, we have very broad discretion. And even though this was drafted by an applicant, not by us, we still have very broad discretion. And I know that there have been questions asked during the public hearing about this, that, or the other thing. And the applicant, to his credit, or the attorney said, well, you can add that. Well, I don't think it's really our job to fix the regulation. And I take it as it was presented. It does not require, actually, something I didn't mention before, it doesn't require any design elements that would support senior housing at all. Ramps or, handicapped access and things like that. So it doesn't have any indicia of actually being for seniors. And as I said, only one person out of perhaps 27 to 50 people, 9 people out of 27 to 50 people would even be over 55. So that to me is not really even in senior housing. So we could potentially be just getting a lot of density without much tailored towards seniors.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll put this to a vote. The motion is to deny the application. So in this case, if you are opposed to the motion, you're voting yes. So all those in favor of the motion.
Oh,
If you're
okay.
opposed to the application, you're voting yes on the motion to deny. So all those in favor of the motion to deny the application, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Next, it's 845 Mill Hill Terrace, a re-subdivision application of OHI Asset Southport LLC for 4 lots and a residence A zone. Can I have a motion? Commissioner Levy.
I'd move to reapprove this subdivision application.
Commissioner Levy moves to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Delgado seconds.
Yeah, I mean, we've already approved it. This is just a reapproval because they're having trouble with the map, and it'll set the clock, give them a little more time to get the map filed.
Any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, and if I could just ask for the prior conditions of approval just to be added as conditions of approval for this approval.
Motion to approve
Yeah.
with, well, readopting the.
Yeah, to readopt the prior conditions of approval.
All right, all those in favor of the motion to approve with the previously adopted conditions, please raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Next is 26 and 65 Commerce Drive, an application by Attorney John Fallon on behalf of BAR Commerce Drive LLC for a special exception and coastal site plan application for auto sales, showroom and repair facility Genesis with an additional automotive storage lot, includes excavation 250 cubic yards for flood storage in a designed industrial district zone. Can I please have a motion on the side of Commissioner?
Motion to approve.
Commissioner move to approve. Do I have a second? Commissioner Levy seconds. Commissioner Capozzi.
No further comment, really. I think it's a beautiful, well thought out design and structure, and so I think it'll be a great addition to the design industrial district.
Yeah, it's in an appropriate area for auto dealership. It's an improvement on the existing auto facility there, and it upgrades all of the flood requirements so that it can now be FEMA compliant. And there is a balancing of the fill requirements between this and the application in Bridgeport.
Thank you. Other comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Harrigan.
We did have a couple of conditions that we were requesting as well, if and they were sent to you previously. So if Commissioner Capozzi, if you would be okay with adding those as conditions of approval?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Approve with staff conditions.
Great.
Any other comments? Commissioner
Just
Braun.
to clarify, the 6 conditions are the ones at the end of the staff recommendation, Ms. Harrigan?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, those should be done. And just, can I just to clarify, the thing that came up during the public hearing was, they had to create more storm capacity because they were filling part of it in. That's all been done adequately?
Yes,
Okay. And that's part of the conditions anyway.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll put this to a vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve with staff recommendations, please raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Move on to our public hearings. First is zoning regulation amendments and application of Russo and Rizzio LLC on behalf of True U Design and Development LLC to add section 10.3.d, transit community middle housing, the design residence district overlay. The proposed regulation will permit up to 9 units on residential lots, a minimum of 1 acre in the limited area between Interstate 95 and the Metro North Railroad per Public Act 25-1 by summary review and with the provision of housing unit equivalency points for all units without the requirement for collector road access per section 10.7. Attorney Russo.
Chairman, members of the commission, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC. Offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield, here on behalf of the applicant for this text amendment. So this is an application for transit middle housing. It's something that's born out of HB 8002. I know you're familiar with that law, but HB 8002 is a wide-ranging legislation passed by the General Assembly in November 2025. The act runs more than 100 pages, addresses housing growth across nearly every aspect of zoning in the state, from mandatory housing growth plans to transit-oriented districts, to modifications to 830G. To understand this bill and connect all the dots, I feel like one of the detectives in that movie and movies that is going crazy and is taking red strings to try to connect everything. It can be difficult to follow. Obviously, it's controversial. I know this commission has been discussing it since even before it was adopted, and combined with 830G. There's just been a lot of discussion about it. But it is the law of the land, so we have to reckon with it. And despite all the difference on development in town, and obviously we see this play out at commission hearings, it's not all division on every issue. And I think if we're trying to find points of consensus, we can find a couple. Now, this is me giving my read and interpreting what I've seen here, which I don't want to try and speak for anybody, so please correct me. But generally, I think there's a consensus to try and obtain enough HUE points for a second moratorium. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean at all costs. I think we've had that discussion in the past few weeks about that on other things that have been on your agenda. But I think obtaining a second moratorium appears to be a general goal, and it is in your POCD. I would also say 9 units or less developments have been better received and less controversial than other developments. And I understand that generalization can in no way be extrapolated to say that any 9 or less unit development is fine. Those applications are scrutinized on a case-by-case basis. Circumstances are different in each application. So I'm not trying to, make that statement, try and say those type of developments shouldn't be scrutinized. But I have submitted a number of applications. Oh, sorry, I didn't even notice. Thanks, everyone. But I have submitted a number of applications in the past couple of years, a number that were controversial. 2 that really were not were 204 Old Post Road, which was for an 8-unit DRD within the corridor being discussed tonight, and the 7-unit townhouse development over on Sherman Court, both of which were unanimously approved. Now, I don't recall having opposition on those. And again, I can't port over the approval for those properties and say they would be fine on any other property or that they wouldn't have opposition. But very, very generally, I think that range of units on that range of land area has been less controversial. So I looked at 8002 and tried to see, is there a path here? Can we utilize this law, despite the division over it, and use it to our advantage as a town to gain HUE points and get that second moratorium with development that, yes, is higher density than single or 2 family. That's what 8002 is for, but it is limited density. So I ended up focusing on one specific provision of 8002, section 16, which repeals and replaces Connecticut General Statutes 8-2S. It is a provision that comes into effect July 1st of this year. And that provision creates a new framework for transit community middle housing, and critically, a new mechanism for Fairfield to earn HUE points for market rate units, not just income restricted affordable units, which is a big change. Honestly, I wish that specific section was in place earlier, because there are developments, 90 unit or less developments that have been built or been approved to be built that may have gained the town additional HUE points for their market rate units. So section 16, focusing in on that, establishes 2 tracks for the creation of transit community middle housing. The first track is commercial mixed use zones that requires that zoning regulations shall allow that type of housing as of right on any commercial or mixed use zone lot, subject only to summary review. That's a different track. It's not the one I am discussing tonight, because frankly, it's automatic. I'm focusing on track 2, which says that zoning commissions through the regulations may allow transit community middle housing on any lot that allows for residential use, subject only to summary review. It requires an amendment to the regulations, and this is the track that this amendment aims to implement. So to kind of go through some of the terms and details of the law. So what is transit community middle housing development? 8002 defines it as a residential building containing not less than 2 and not more than 9 dwelling units, including townhouses, duplexes, triplexes, perfect sixes, which is a 3-story building with a central entrance and 2 units per floor. And then cottage clusters, which is defined as 4 or more detached units per acre, arranged around a common open space. So that's the definition in 8002. What this statute says regarding HUE points is that any municipality that adopts zoning regulations allowing this type of housing on residential lots earns 1/4 HUE point per unit upon the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. This award applies to every unit in the development, so including market rate units, which again is the big change that you would gain from this amendment. It's a fundamental departure from the traditional HUE point framework, which previously awarded points only for deed restricted affordable units, except for set aside developments. So to put some numbers on that, let's take a 9-unit development. Your new amendment that you approved to the BMR requirement would require 2 affordable units for a 9-unit development, because you now require 12% BMR on developments over 5 units. So just with that provision that you've already approved, and I know we've done this math recently, if it was for sale, that would result in 2 HUE points. If it was rental, it would be 3 HUE points. So that's just with what you have now. Utilizing this provision in 8002, an additional 1.75 points would be earned, at least. So a 9-unit for sale development would yield 3.75 HUE points, and a rental development would yield 4.75 HUE points. And that's a massive change for a development that a month ago netted you 0 HUE points. So again, this is something, it takes effect July 1st, 2026. By adopting the proposed amendment now, you would have the regulation in place. So the minute the statute becomes operative, any development that obtains a certificate of occupancy on or after that date on a qualifying DRD lot will generate those HUE points. Now, I think the biggest issue, and at least the one that would seem to be identified most by those who wrote in opposition, is the summary review portion of it, which I get. I just presented special exception applications on those 2 developments that I mentioned. And I thought those were, constructive hearings. And again, we received unanimous approval on those applications. And I know the commission wants that level of review. Unfortunately, under 8002, the developments that would fall under this amendment would not award HUE points unless it's permitted by summary review, which I keep saying that term, it's essentially as of right. So a traditional special exception application within a TRD would not qualify under that law. But, and I think this is a big but, as I was looking at 802, I think there's a way. It's not all the way there, but it's most of the way there to give this commission the level of review it expects on a TRD. Because 8002 allows for units in a transit community middle housing development to count for HUE points on any lot that allows for residential use. And that's the key. Obviously, residence A, B, and C allow for residential use, but so too obviously does the designed residence district. So the DRD, in my opinion, would satisfy the requirement of 8002. A lot in the DRD allows for residential use, and that follows 8002. So by placing this amendment within the DRD, it still satisfies 8002, but it adds one key step, which, you know, we discussed in the ARHD application, which is an application for zone change. And that is where this commission can review and determine if a lot is appropriate for a DRD development of the size. You know, and to reiterate, we had that discussion during the ARHD text amendment. But, you know, to reiterate, on a zone change application for a DRD, you can request a traffic study, sightline analysis, conceptual site plan, so you can see how it would lay out. We could look at the building envelope, how the DRD standards would apply. So basically, we don't know how much building could be built under the DRD regulations. We could look at setbacks. And any lot would, you know, obviously still be a subject to applying to wetlands if there was wetlands if necessary. So it's not a special exception level of review, but I think there's still a significant amount of review that could be done before you approved to place a property within a DRD. And it's a zone change. So if the site looks like it can appropriately handle 9 units or less, you can approve it. If it doesn't, you say no. It's your legislative discretion. So to get to the actual text of the amendment, the proposed amendment creates a new subsection D within section 10.3 of the regulation, providing that lots within the DRD that satisfy all of the following conditions may be used for residential development containing no more than 9 dwelling units as of right. Exempt from section 10.7, but it needs to meet the following requirements. Minimum lot area of at least 1 acre, access to a public roadway, has to be located between I-95 and Metro North, and it cannot be located within a historic district. So comparing it to existing DRD density, this amendment does not increase the density beyond what the existing regulations already contemplate for a DRD. A traditional DRD on a 1 acre lot is permitted up to 12 units, 1 unit for the first 9,375 square feet and 1 additional unit per 3,000 square feet after. This amendment would cap the permitted as of right DRD at 9 units, 3 fewer than the existing maximum. If someone applied for a DRD and they wanted more than 9 units, then it would not be summary review. It would be your normal special exception application. So I think the density is what's less than what the DRD currently allows. I'll also note, because there's residence B in this corridor, which I'm going to go through. I have the GIS maps that show the zoning, so I was just going to go through those, but you'll see there's a lot of residence B in this corridor. And the residence B zone, as recently amended again by this commission, allows a 5-unit middle housing development on lots of 15,000, which is basically 14.5 units per acre. Now, I know there's other requirements that go into qualifying for that 5 units, but there is a more dense option in residence B already. So regarding the corridor, and what that actually includes. So the defined corridors between I-95 and Metro North Railroad, it's predominantly zoned DCD or DID. That's the majority of the properties. And with regards to those commercial and industrial zones, I'll just note that the DCD already permits a floor area up to 150% of the lot area. So that's 65,000 square feet, a little over 65,000 square feet of floor area is permitted on a 1 acre lot. So even with the 50% residential floor area restriction, I think the potential density far exceeds 9 units per acre. I mean, because you're talking over 30,000 square feet of residential floor area that could be permitted in a DCD. So I don't think the amendment's really changing much there for those properties. Plus there was the other track that I spoke of that's already in 8002. For the DID, what I think you'll see is there are a lot of large properties. And if they're 1 acre and get their zone changed to a DRD, I think that the units you're looking at is probably a lot more than the 9 units. So I don't think it's substantially changing things for the designed industrial district. The balance of the properties in this corridor are located in the Residence A zone and Residence B zone. There's also DRDs. Under your current DRD regulations, if the underlying is Res A or Res B, you're required a minimum of 1 acre. So we're matching that because I know that came up in the ARHD, how the minimum lot area was different. This minimum lot area is the same at 1 acre. There is one property that I'll point out that's in the AAA zone, but it's vacant open space that's owned by the Southport Land Trust. So I don't really think it's under threat of being developed. But I'll point out when I go through the maps. And again, just to note, the amendment expressly excludes properties within a historic district. Specifically, this protects the Southport Historic District. There's a portion along Spruce Street that extends above the railroad. So that's off the table under this amendment. Spruce Street is actually Res B, so it already has a couple of 2-family dwellings or a few 2-family dwellings on it. So with that, I'll just go through these maps quickly just to show you the area. So as you can see here, black is I-95 and orange is the railroad. So we're talking about
Can we
this.
put the maps, excuse me, can we put the maps on the screen?
You didn't submit it, right?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did, okay.
Yeah. It's GIS maps. They're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Is this the number 1 in the mapping?
Yeah, we can go to number 1, which is right here.
They're not titled, right?
No, I think
In the submission, yeah, it's 1, and then it says like Southport West and 2 Southport East, just for general description of the area.
Streets located, just title and Southport West or East.
Right. There's no like a list out of the streets, you mean?
Circles and
Yeah, just showing this area right here. Yeah, it just shows the area, and then it has the zoning overlay on them.
So this is 1 Southport West.
1 Southport West, right?
so it should have a title that says 1 Southport West.
On the PDF, there is. Just submitted. This is 1 Southport West. So starting from the west of town, heading towards the east, you can see there's a DRD here. That's the Westwade Road development. There's some residential A, Wakeman's. You can see there's another DRD. This right here, this pink outline.
Which one do you want?
Is 1.
Is it possible to put this on the screen?
Yeah, sorry, Commissioner Braun. John's pulling up.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. So Commissioner Braun, restate. So on the left-hand side, there's a DRD. You can see that's the Westway Road development. Then there is residential A. You can see Wakeman's on the right side of it. Then there's a DRD. This pink area here is Spruce Street, which is in the historic district. So that would be exempted from the amendment. And then John, I'm going to switch to 2. So this is 2, which I call Southport East. You can see that DRD on the left-hand side. You can see Spruce Street, it's Residence B. Then it switches over. It's DCD, EI. There's a DRD that was recently approved. This Residence B right here is Southport Park. There's a DCD over here, and then the remainder is Residence A. And you can see another DRD up there. This is the one piece that's in the AA zone. That's the piece that's owned by the Southport Land Trust.
Do you know the sizes of those DRDs?
The sizes of the DRDs here? No.
Did you say Spruce Street would not be governed by this?
No, because I excluded the historic district, and Spruce Street above the railroad is in the historic district. So continuing on, There's that DRD, you can see the river, and then it starts switching really to being predominantly in non-residential zones. So there's the DI, which is Linwood Avenue. Again, I don't think this amendment really changes significantly. What could be in a DI, and that continues as you head further east. Switching to the next plan. I think one more before that, sorry, 4. So you can see in this area, Sportsplex, which again is in the DI. There's the cemetery, there's some residential up here that's in Res A. And then there's Res A on this side of the street. And then you can see the train station north, again, DI, not changing much. And then the existing DRDs, Mosswood, Anchorage, are already located within DRDs. We're not changing much there. And then you can see the school and the Audubon property here on the right.
So Ludlow would be covered by this? Ludlow
Thomas. Yeah.
Circle, I mean Ludlow Road, off Mill Plain Road. Ludlow Court, I guess.
I believe so.
Ludlow
Yeah,
Road.
that's right here, I believe, right? Yeah.
So
So that
Ludlow
would be
Road
covered.
and Sunfield Lane would be covered by this?
Yeah, if between 95 and Metro North. Yeah.
Okay. And they're not on collector roads, but that would be a change from what was required under our
Right.
regular DRD.
Yes, from your regular DRD regulation. And so I'll go through that. I was going to go through that after I just went through the map. So you can see the school here. Here's more Residence A. There's this DI that you have in between the off ramp at 95 and the on ramp at 95. And then this is where actually a 95 and the train station pinch together. There's really not developable property.
Hillcrest Road is?
Hillcrest is trying to see where Hillcrest is. I'd have to look. and
It's
see.
behind Tomlinson.
Yeah, so I think it would not be on the previous plan. But right here, this is the area here. You can see it's pinched. There's no real developable property here. Then it opens back up as you get over to Kings Highway. There's a DI piece right there. And then switching over to, perfect, yep, thank you. Piece in the DCD, Whole Foods and Home Depot. Again, this isn't changing, this amendment really isn't changing much there. Then you have a section that's Residence B here, where like Rhode Island Avenue is. That would be impacted by this amendment. And if I go to the next one, I think we only have 2 more. And now we're at the metro station. You could see a large chunk of it is DCD, and then it switches to DI and carries DI all the way until the Bridgeport border. So it's
Area at the bottom on the left.
the one before.
On the bottom.
Yeah, this is Rhode Island Ave. Yeah, it's Rhode Island Ave. Yeah, that area would be impacted by the amendment. So large chunks that are in DCD and DI, which I don't think this amendment is again changing from what's kind of existing in regulations. But we have these areas of Residence A, Residence B, and Residence B where again there's existing amendments that offer more density than what's being proposed here.
So basically,
Sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
so there's a number of little residential streets that are encompassed, starting with Ludlow Road down by Mill Plain Road, Meadowbrook, also all of the New England Avenue area. So that basically means as of right, it's not summary review, it's as of right, which means no public hearing, no
Summary review is
discussion.
summary review is the term that's used in 8002.
But that's not the term you're using in your regulation. You're using as of right. There is a slight difference, I think.
I think you've used the term interchangeably in not just on this item, but in previous ones. And they're not the same. We don't treat them the same. So I I'm not sure which is the intent for this, but in general, I would make a request that when you're putting regulation amendments before us that deal with summary review, and as of right, you're just clear about which one is included. Because if we have summary review, this commission is going to see it. There's not going to be a public hearing, but we will see it. So as of right, unless you mean really as of right, I would
Yeah,
say summary review.
Summary review to be in line with 8002. I'm just kind of trying to.
Right, but you use the term as of right. So if your intent is to be consistent with 8002, I suggest using, again, not just for this, but for future applications, use the term summary review. Because they're not the same.
So right, we're trying to, again, be in line with 8002, but require again, what I think this amendment does is it has this step that requires you to locate it in the DRD, which gives this commission the opportunity to analyze it closer than maybe you would if something was already in that zone and was getting summary review. To address the collector road exemption, why I think it's appropriate, the amendment exempts qualifying DRD lots from the collector road access requirement of section 10.7. This exemption is justified because the defined corridor is already surrounded by the resources that collector roads are designed to provide access to. This area really doesn't need to be, vehicles don't need to be collected to be delivered to mass transit or the Post Road, Kings Highway, Commerce Drive corridors. They're already there. I-95 is immediately adjacent. Metro North Railroad is easily accessible at 3 different stations. Bus service is in this corridor. So I think it's very distinct from a DRD on Morehouse Highway or Melville Avenue that needs a collector road to carry residents through large swaths of Fairfield to reach mass transit and commercial corridors.
So you can access I-95 from this property?
It's closer because you are within this very corridor. You are right there at 95. You don't have to travel through large parts of Fairfield.
Do you know how to get from this property to I-95?
Which property are you talking?
Property 111 Mill Hill Road.
If you wanted to get to 95, you would just go down, take a left and get on the concrete. That's right there.
Make the road, there's a, make a left to go the opposite direction. Then you have to kind of circle around.
Are you talking about going north?
North or south. There's 2 different ways to get on it there.
You get right on by the,
Not south. North of 2, you're gonna access points.
so if you were, where am I right here? So if you were up here, you go down here, you take this left, and then there's the on-ramp right there. This is the on-ramp right here. There's 111 Mill Hill Road. Go down here, you just take this on-ramp right there.
To get south, to go south.
Well, to go south.
Yeah.
To go south, you'd have to go down and then go over here. Yes. But to go north is why I thought
It's probably at least 2 miles, correct? 2 to 3 miles?
I'd have to measure it to how you would, you would just go under the underpass and then you would take a left.
I just want to say I-95 adjacent. Maybe sit on 995, but accessing it as close as you say.
It's not right outside the door, no, but I don't think you have to travel anywhere near the distances of other collector roads throughout the town to get it. And if you're trying to access like the Post Road commercial corridor, it's very close. I mean, whether you're at 111 Mill Hill Road, or if you're somewhere in Southport, or if you're on Rhode Island Avenue, you don't really need to be collected to get down to those areas. You basically just have to drive down the road and you're at the Post Road corridor. So you have a lot of easier access. So that's why I just think it's an appropriate place to exempt the collector road.
Commissioner Braun.
So I'm looking at the Mill Hill area. Is the subject property we're talking about 111 Mill Hill Road?
Well, there's no subject property. I mean, it's just a text amendment application, but if we're using that as an example, yes, that's the one that Commissioner Monahan is talking about.
So you're talking about a 9-plex as of right, because that is what your regulation says, as of right, no discretion, doesn't come to our commission. Pretty much anywhere on any of these little residential roads would Kings Drive be subject to it on one end, and then like all of New England Avenue, and then Meadowbrook, Hillcrest behind Tomlinson, all those. So everywhere else in a DRD, you need a collector road, and there are many places in town just as easy to get onto the highway as between the train tracks and I-95. It seems like this is being treated specially. You know, you can go north of I-95 and get on just as easily, maybe easier than in some instances, but suddenly you could build a nineplex here as of right without our commission even looking at it. So I need to understand the distinction.
But Commissioner Braun, that's why I placed this amendment within the DRD. So it wouldn't just be that you wouldn't see the property at all. You would see it when that property owner or applicant applied for the DRD. And I think this is where the amendment has protection for the commission. Because if someone comes in with an application for a DRD in this corridor and you have an issue with the access, too narrow, you don't think it can handle that amount of cars, you just deny the zone change, and that's it. If it has good access and you feel like it's a site that can handle 9 units, then you can grant it. And the other thing is, during the application for the DRD, you can ask for expert analysis in that application process. And you could say, what's the sightline analysis? Does this piece even have appropriate sightlines to put a driveway in? And I think it would be appropriate at that application for an applicant to submit that type of analysis. And if you looked at it and you said, I don't think this site can get good sightlines, because maybe it's a smaller road, it's a narrow road, you could deny it.
So I mean, nineplexes are massive. They're huge. And we approved 2 nineplexes on Upper Reef Road. They were occupying already, commercial areas. It was completely paved over to begin with, and it actually, I think, added some green space from what had been there before, but it went before our commission. So we were allowed to look at it. Neighbors could show up. There was a public hearing. You're taking all that away. So we would not be able to look at the unique property, the actual site plan, and figure out the idiosyncrasies of this project on this site. It would simply be, and that's not the level of review we get when we get a concept. So I have a problem with that. Also, it seems like.
Wait, Commissioner Braun, can I just respond to that one thing? So this amendment does exempt the collector road, but it does not exempt setbacks, coverage, and the other requirements of the DRD. So those, you would still know setbacks, you would still have the height restriction, you'd still have the coverage restrictions.
So the difference between this and the DRD is what exactly?
That
we already have the DRD.
It permits it for summary review.
Nope, that's not what it says. Either change the language or stop saying summary review. I'm sorry, but it says as of right in the language. So as of right, okay.
And then it exempts the collector road requirement.
Maybe I missed it, but I just don't understand why we need to institute another global zoning regulation change. Why couldn't we just, if you had a project that conformed to these specifications, why couldn't they just come before the commission and we have a normal review?
The issue is, so 8002 is specific and it will not award the points for the market rate units.
Right.
So I've come before this commission on 204 Old Post Road, which had 8 units, Sherman Court, the 2 down on Reef Road, the 2 9-unit developments on Reef Road. And those didn't add any HUE points for the town to qualify for the moratorium. If there was some type of amendment in place that qualified for 8002, the town could have received points through that. And so that's what this is aiming to do and trying to do.
Yeah, I have 2 questions. Under this proposed amendment, what could be built which isn't already permitted under 8002? And the converse is, what could not be built under this, but would be required by 8002.
Are you talking about size of the building? Because really the difference is the collector road. Because again, DRDs permit 12 units per acre. But that's by special exception. It's really how it would be approved and then the collector road requirement.
But even without this, once 8002 becomes law, if somebody wants to put in a non-unit development in the DRD, they would be able to do that. Is that correct?
No, it's
No.
residential.
No, because it would in DCD, because that's under the track 1. But everything that's in the residence A and residence B zone, I don't think would qualify for 8002.
But then in the,
It gives us the option to do
Right.
what.
well, I thought we had the option and we elected to go with mixed use as opposed to residential, didn't we?
That's different.
Well, that's one way you can accumulate points, but I thought, because see, if you put it in, like you have the option, you could put it in residence A and residence B, but then there's nothing for you to be able to see that property because it would have to be permitted as of right to qualify for this section of 8002. So if it's already,
This is
sorry, it's every
It's a
bit.
separate thing than what all
got
the
it.
other things we've discussed so far. It's an optional thing, basically what he's proposing that would essentially just give us HUE points, but we have to make it
Regulation.
through
Got it.
summary review.
But rather than putting in residence A and residence B where you don't have to switch the zone, by putting in the DRD, it now puts it in so the property has to come to you for the approval of the DRD, which is where I think you can conduct analysis and look and see if it's an appropriate site.
Commissioner Monahan.
I think it's important to note that 25-1 requires towns to allow middle housing by summary review on commercial and mixed use lots.
Right. That's required
Yes, and
Yes.
you're asking for an extension of that pathway to residential lots.
to get to this track 2, which is the
So you can
permissive
get
one.
HUE points.
Well, sorry. So you would, if you take track 2, which is the permissive, and you extend it to residential, you could also get points for that. Because the track 1 wouldn't apply to the residence A and residence B zone portions of this corridor.
And if I may, under the regulations that this commission has already adopted and recently adopted for the amendments to the affordable inclusionary housing requirements, any development over 5 units is required to provide 12 to 15% of those units as deed restricted affordable. So we're getting to HUE points for those developments also.
So it would be, you would have, so for instance, if it was 9 units, under your current regulations, would require 2 units. And so you would get the HUE points for those. But previously, there was no opportunity to get points on the other 7. And now you could get points for the other 7 units as well. Quarter of a point each.
Go ahead, Commissioner Braun.
I mean, I understand the purpose behind 8002, which was enacted as Public Act 25-1, which is just build density everywhere. So to incentivize us, they're giving us points for market rate, quarter point, if we do this. But we're not actually building affordable housing with this. So it's really not helping to diversify our housing stock. So that doesn't really, that doesn't convince me of it. I'm still very concerned about the fact that you keep calling it summary review when it's as of right, and summary review has a different definition in 8002. It allows us to review it for the application itself, not just the zone change to DRD zone for health or safety issues. So
Yeah, I think the
Why-
first
why are
step
you-
would
why
be
are-
that you would have this zone change where you would be
But-
able to
but
ask
why
for
are you-
expert testimony.
why are you calling it summary review if it's as of right? Are you going to change the words?
It's summary review under 8002.
But
So
why
I
are
could
you
switch the
calling it as of
wording,
right?
I could ask for an amendment to the wording to put in summary review.
Let's just, since the language as proposed is as of right, for the purpose of this, we have to go by what the language is, which is as of right. That doesn't mean this commission has to to accept that. It could reject it altogether. It could accept it with a proposed amendment to that language. But for now, I've requested that Attorney Russo
Okay.
moving forward is more clear with the language because I agree they're not the same. But for this purpose, the language that we have in front of us is as of right.
And just reading the long 4-page narrative, I think there's a typo in it in the second 2 pages, which I'm just going to ask you to replace with narrative. I think somehow whoever typed this up put something on there related to the Congress Street one.
Well, there was a revised one
Oh.
that was submitted. Yeah.
What's on the website? Because I just printed it.
Okay.
So if you corrected that typo, it's like a 3-page typo. Could you, then I don't have, this is all I got, and I just printed this
Sure.
today. So, because I don't know what your narrative will say then. You might be explaining it more in the corrected narrative than in this. The last 2 pages is talking about the wrong regulation, just.
Yeah, there was a draft that was mistakenly submitted.
So that will be resubmitted. So, you know,
Well, it was resubmitted.
oh, it was? I don't have,
Yeah.
where is it? I don't see it.
Submitted on
think
Friday.
it's posted.
I think it's posted for today's agenda. in the file.
Oh, was it? Because I downloaded this just now, or like, today.
Might have been off of an old meeting.
Can I ask Ms. Harrigan if the updated thing was posted, or I guess the old one is still there, maybe?
It should be dated, Commissioner Braun, it should be the one that's dated May 22nd, 2026.
Okay, I'm not looking at it right now, but so you're saying both versions of the narrative are up there now?
I think we removed the one that was an error.
Can we dates on these documents so we know?
It's
This says
dated,
February 6th on this submission,
that's
but
the
I-
incorrect one. The correct
but I
one. is
downloaded
May
it today,
22nd.
oddly. Yeah, okay.
One in the folder is dated.
But even the amendments.
May 22nd.
It should be dated for May 22nd.
Might be dated in the folder. I'm just saying that to print
I mean, I
it.
don't think we can remove things that were posted, but this should be added. So I'll double check later if it's up there. That's great.
There's questions. Commissioner Monahan.
So, multifamily development and the density clearly creates a lot more traffic. Parking and
Mhm.
Also the neighborhood character. And I know that, you may not want to discuss that, but there are a lot of established neighborhoods
Right.
in these areas that if you cobble together lots, can get to 1 acre.
Right.
I know the lot you're talking about, 111 Mill Hill Terrace, does not have 1 acre. It's 0.93.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just wondering, you were looking at that specific property. How do you imagine getting that to 1 acre so that it actually, fit
Well,
in?
people could, I mean, the amendment would allow, so if somebody wanted to put multiple properties together and combine it to get over an acre. And that's why, again, I think that putting the amendment where it is allows you to look at the character and say, all right, is this site big enough that it could accommodate 9 units? Does it have the sight lines and all those things? You can look at the wetlands, you can look at all those things and decide, no, it's not appropriate here. On this street, it's too small of a street or something like that. But then there could be another property that you look at and you say, well, you know what, 9 units fits here. Just like, maybe it fit for 204 Old Post Road, or some other property like that in this corridor. And then take advantage of that and say, all right, well, this site can clearly handle 9 units. Given our setbacks and our coverages. So let's approve it for a DRD. And then we're going to get points on the affordable and the market rate on it. But if you felt it was like, no, 9 units can't fit on this site, then you just deny the zone change.
Other questions?
And again, clearly there's parts of this law that are controversial. And I think general, there's, certainly a lot of people who are in opposition to it. But when I look at it is there something in this law that we could utilize to gain these points, which seems to be a general consensus on trying to gain these points? And, just like in the ARHD, I could propose a DRD on a property for my client and you have approved this amendment, you could deny that one. And then somebody else could come along and say, well, here, I have a 1.5 acre piece that I could put 9 units on, and you say, well, this one works. And so let's accumulate HUE points. But it is the law of land, and I mean, that's not changing. And
It's
so,
local law. We can extend it to residential. We're not mandated to.
no, but the requirement for the points to get the second moratorium, that is on us. And I think there is an avenue in this bill where you can have some protection through the zone change process to review a site and deem it appropriate. Whereas the rest of the law is kind of like, summary review, and it takes it out of your hands. But I do think there's a lane here where this could work and gain the town some more HUE points.
Commissioner Braun.
One other thing I just want to point out regarding zone changes, for the last 60 years or 70 years, the protest petition has been the law of our state, whereby if 20% of the property owners within 500 feet of the subject zone change file a specific type of legal petition, it would force a supermajority on this commission to approve a zone change. That has been eviscerated also by this housing law. So no longer is a supermajority provided. And also they increase the amount of people. It has to be 50% now instead of 20%, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't force a supermajority. I don't see what the purpose is of a protest petition. I don't know if you've studied that, Attorney Russo, but that's my interpretation is the protest petition is dead and there's no point. And so now it's going to be that much easier to approve a zone change. It will no longer give the members of the public the option who live in close proximity to the zone change to file a protest petition and force a higher level of our commission to approve it.
Well, I could take a look at that, Commissioner Braun.
Commissioner Monahan.
So do you intend to seek a variance so that you can qualify under this regulation using, the property?
Well, I mean, again, that's a specific property application and this is a text amendment application, but no, the intent would be that we would qualify for this amendment
So
to
you
be
have,
over an acre,
you have an ability to cobble together properties.
be over an acre.
So there's already a plan to do so.
Well, it's, contingent on a number of things, but yeah. But you don't have to, you wouldn't even have to approve that one if you didn't think it was appropriate. That's what this amendment gives you the power to do.
Anything else from you?
I did have I'm sorry. Just I'll run through quickly consistency with the POCD. We believe the proposed amendment is consistent with, and in several respects directly implements the goals and strategies of the POCD. The POCD goal number 1 is housing access for all. The first plan goal states people of all ages, creeds, races, incomes, and physical abilities or capabilities will have access to diverse and affordable housing options. We think this amendment directly advances this goal by creating a new pathway for housing types that provide exactly that smaller, more diverse housing option. POCD goal 3 states areas around train stations will be places where people can work, live, learn, and play and be connected. We think the amendment's geographic focus, the corridor between I-95 and the railroad is precisely this transit adjacent area that this goal envisions. And it's an appropriate location for increased residential density. I know I've spoken about middle housing before and how the POCD notes that as an issue, the missing middle housing crisis. And this directly addresses that. The POCD also specifically cited a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Plan to potentially allow DRD developments if they were near arterial roads or collector roads, not necessarily on them and near transit service. So we think this amendment satisfies all those conditions. And then again, what we were just talking about, there's specific language in the POCD where it says that the goal is to produce enough below market rate units, which by extension HUE points, to qualify for a subsequent moratorium. And so, this amendment would help along towards that goal. And with that, we feel that we satisfy, and are in line with your POCD.
So you just mentioned that you believe that the smaller housing stock provides a more diverse housing option. Could you speak to that, please?
Yeah, I just
One
think,
more question.
sorry, yeah.
Also, how are these locations? Because it's not just one location, it's the entire
Right,
breadth and depth of the area between 95 and the train, which is in some areas, a lot of smaller residential neighborhoods with single family homes that are established.
right.
How is this location for transit-oriented density? You mentioned those two things, so I just want you to speak to those specifically.
Right. So I mean, again, these are certainly in certain locations in this corridor where these streets are very close to commercial corridors, to the 3 train stations, or to I-95. So I think that makes them unique in comparison to the rest of the town. There are places where there's streets where the parcels are much smaller than an acre. Somebody, again, would have to have enough of those pieces to qualify for an acre. And then again, this commission could look at it and they could say, you know what, this is a street that's full of sub 1 acre, maybe sub half acre parcels. And having this type of development doesn't really fit that street. But then there's others where you might look and say, and look and say, there's a DRD right across the street that has higher density than 9 units.
That's not my question.
Sorry.
You specifically stated that the smaller housing stock creates more diverse housing options. That's my question.
Yeah, because
Smaller housing stock providing more.
right, so it's less dense than your.
Diverse housing
Yeah,
options.
so it's not as dense as your apartment buildings, but it's the stock that's in the range of, whether it's 5 units to 15, 20. So it's less dense than your apartment and it's just a different option. We've seen a lot of them come recently, with the 2 that I did, and then just others that we've seen have come forward. This demand for, this type of middle housing option. And so I think, the POCD talks a lot about that housing and how it's missing middle housing. And so we're looking to.
Can you show us any data on that? How it's, we talk
Well,
about.
it's whatever, all that was in the POCD, and all the references in the POCD
But there's
to.
no data to back that up. There's no data to prove that people are looking for small houses on 0.11 acres adjacent to I-95 in a residential neighborhood.
Why, I could certainly go through the POCD and, because I know there was a specific study that was referenced and I could submit that at.
Okay,
I'd
I'd
love
love
to
to see it.
Sure.
And then also, how is this an appropriate location for transit-oriented density? Speaking to the smaller residential side streets already having significant single-family homes on smaller parcels. How is that an appropriate location for transit-oriented density?
I think just again, due to its proximity to these corridors and to the train station and to 95. And I mean, I think if you look at 802, I mean, this is one portion of it, but there's all sorts of stuff in 802 targeting these areas. And I think this is, this is a limited amendment that controls it. It's not anything above 9. It's capped at 9, for lots that are 1 acre. So it's still a high lot area requirement for a density that's lower than your existing DRD and what it allows. And again, if you look at the street and you don't think it's appropriate on that street, deny the zone change.
Sure.
Right. But if it's located directly across from a DRD and it's in the vicinity of other density and it looks like the roadway has good access, then it would possibly appropriate for this type of DRD. And so and then you could approve the zone change in that instance.
I don't believe that anyone, I mean, did you read any of the letters in terms of some of the people on the side streets and kind of what their concern is?
Yeah, no,
Do you understand?
and I understand that. I mean, and it would be ideal if the law didn't say summary review and we could just go through the special exception
The
permit.
law is for commercial and industrial. It's not, it extends us a right to include residential, but does not mandate that we do this.
Does not mandate.
Does not mandate.
100%,
that we do this.
it's 100%
You're
permissive.
asking us to do it.
But the moratorium and the requirements of 830G,
And we have a
Are here.
moratorium. Yes.
you don't have a second moratorium. And 830G was approved. When I talk to neighbors who are in opposition all the time, I tell people this all the time. 830G was approved in 1989. There was a long time to prepare for it, but people didn't reckon with the law and what was required under it. So I saw a lot of comments of just no more development. No more of this, which I understand if people are fed up with it and they don't want to see anymore. But the truth of the matter is that law is in place. And if we don't get the second moratorium, then 830G applications can resume. So if there's a pathway in what law exists now that we could acquire more HUE points, I think it's worth providing that option in these regulations so that you can look at it and say, okay, is this location okay? And we can basically rack up more HUE points by approving it for a DRD.
Once this passes,
Mhm.
it's free reign between 95 and the train on residential side streets for someone to cobble together properties to create 9-unit developments.
Anybody who had over an acre and was in that corridor come and apply to you.
Yes.
If 50 people applied, you could deny 50. Or you could approve 1 or 2 where you thought it was appropriate. And you could get, 8 HUE points out of those 2 developments.
There are other locations I'd rather see that in, but understanding.
All set from you, Attorney Russo?
Yes.
Well, thank you for the presentation and turn to public comment. Start with, can you just move your? We'll start with folks in the room when joining remotely who wishes to be heard in this item. Please sign it in chat and indicate you'd like to speak. It's Attorney Green, are you here for this item too? And then we'll go, we'll start with Attorney Green, and then we'll go first come, first serve, for everyone else who is here and wants to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the staff. My name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law offices of Green and Gross, and it's my pleasure to appear before you this evening on behalf of the Sasquatch Conservancy for Southport that counts among its membership nearly 200 households in Southport and beyond. And Sasquatch is an organization that's over 100 years old and is dedicated to, it's an advocacy group and also dedicated to preserving the quality of life and character of the South area of Fairfield. So I honestly was called on this application today. And because the phones started ringing for the officers of Sasquatch with a lot of people, both who are members and who aren't, who are understandably concerned about the impacts of this. And I think there is just cause for concern. And I understand, some of the attractiveness of this legislation in the current environment we are in. However, there's just, on my brief review of this today, it raises so many questions, many of which have already been asked by the commission. Fundamentally, I don't understand how this was crafted. I don't understand the logic, for example, of locating this between I-95 and the railroad tracks, and to say that it is because of its proximity to this public transportation infrastructure is sort of poorly conceived, because someone who lives on property that abuts I-95 to the south of the highway really has the same access as someone who abuts the property on the north side of the right of way. So there's kind of this funny notion. And I think that some of the comments and in some of the letters, it seems sort of ill-conceived the way it's targeted and limited. And I understand, once again, the objective, of course, these always arise from a single property owner sort of promoting this. But I think there's a lack of a thorough analysis, and mostly for me, I really need an opportunity to analyze this in the context of House Bill 8002. So on behalf of the Sasquatch Association, I'm really here this evening to ask if the commission would consider holding this public hearing open. I think that Sasquatch as an organization needs to really develop a position on this that takes into account the input of its members and of the community. And we would be happy to do that and come back to the commission and sort of share the concerns of our members and the others we've heard from. So is there an opportunity for this to be held open?
I would like to, I don't know how many folks are here for this meeting. Why don't we see who's here to comment on this item? I know I'm sure some folks are here to comment on multiple items, but why don't we see?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the commission can continue to receive public comment, but I would just ask for an opportunity after I've really had a chance to go through this, but more significantly for our organization to respond to the many inquiries it's received and sort of develop an appropriate response after analyzing that information.
That he was only hired today. It's
Yeah.
in good faith to keep it open for him to do his due diligence.
Well, I mean, I have, well, with this commission, and I have respect for Attorney Green. That's not in itself a reason to hold a hearing open. The fact that he was hired today, but let's go to public comment, or the rest of the public comment, and we'll come back to this.
Yeah, and maybe after everyone who's here has had an opportunity to comment, depending on what the commission's determination is, I may ask to address the commission again.
Is it being postponed multiple times to our agenda by the applicant?
At least once, I think the last time.
So I think keeping the public comment open, although people have planned to speak at other public comments, and it kept getting moved. So I think that I've gotten calls from people saying, when are we actually supposed to come? Is it going to be canceled this time? Will it be moved? So I think keeping the public comment open would be respectful of the community as well as the Sasquatch.
Thank you, Attorney Green. We'll go.
I'll stand by. Thank
Can
you.
can I ask Attorney Green a question that maybe he could cover?
Go ahead.
My understanding of the housing law is transit middle housing is not confined to the transit area. The definition I found is it's a nineplex anywhere. Now, transit middle housing is specifically allowed as of right in the housing law if it's a commercial conversion to residential mixed use.
Correct.
But transit middle housing is not itself confined to the transit area. And I hope you cover that when you come back, unless you know it already, because it's very confusing.
That my understanding is consistent with what you've just expressed.
Why
And
would they call it
that
transit
was a
middle
question.
housing? Yeah, I don't know why the law calls it transit middle housing. It's kind of a bug in my bonnet. Why are they calling it transit middle housing if it doesn't have to be near a transit area? Because that's the whole premise of this application. It's in the transit area, kind of like. But transit middle housing doesn't have to be, right?
Well, it's in my view, an ill-defined area. And I think, as Commissioner Monahan pointed out, the applicant really would sort of, for the benefit of increasing the points that the town can achieve, is looking to extend it into many residential neighborhoods. And that's sort of the origin of the calls that Sasquatch has received. So.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak on this item? Come on up. All right. And again, if anyone's joining remotely who wants to speak, please make sure to indicate that you want to speak in the chat.
Hi, friends. I'm Emily Howe. I live on Elm Street. I submitted comprehensive testimony about this, so I'll just summarize it this way. I don't understand how things like this come before the commission and like before the general public's attention. In that the narrative that has been submitted on the record does not get all the way through its explanation before it starts talking about a completely different property on the other side of town. So like, how does that happen? How does that come before the public? Because I do feel like we're wasting our time here with this, like the narrative of the applicant undermines the application. I find this very confusing. And I hope that you'll read all of the many points that I've made on the record. There are a lot of concerns with this application, and I'll leave it at that.
Excuse me, I have a question.
We're not asking the public questions. Yes, I was able to open that. Anyone else in the room wish to be heard?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Meyer. I live in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm a local realtor in town. When we first started this meeting, I was a little confused because there was mention about over 55, Congress Street. And then we come over to this neighborhood, I think in Southport, that would affect Ludlow Road, that would affect Rhode Island Road. My concern is when we as residents, taxpayers read the agenda, I've noticed over the past few months that there has been a property address related to every topic that is discussed. And I do not understand why this particular topic is so shady. Why? And it's been for weeks and weeks and weeks that they have wanted to get this in front of you all to make a decision, but not allowing the town residents, taxpayers to know what's happening in their neighborhood that they have spent $500,000, $1 million, $2 million to live here. And the developers, I just feel that this board is so pro-development and you do not feel it's important to preserve the town of Fairfield, both architecturally, density. I mean, so many questions need to be asked of these developers. It's not right. You need to be better for the town of Fairfield. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room want to speak on this item? Mr. Mullen, anyone online?
There is not.
Can I make a note? Several people have called me over the past few weeks, filling the room, waiting to talk on this particular topic. And then it was canceled before and it was no longer an agenda item. So now we're here tonight and there's few people in the room and there's few people calling in, but we have dozens and dozens of letters by residents. I don't think it's fair to close this public comment session without hearing from people affected in these neighborhoods and on these streets personally, so that they can hear exactly what's being discussed that will affect their property values, their quality of life, traffic on their streets, the density on their streets, the construction on their streets. So I respectfully request we also keep it open.
I hope commissioners are not speaking with members of the public about pending applications offline, but I think Attorney Green, I appreciate the request. Well, I'm fine with holding this public hearing open. we can discuss, we have room on the next agenda. There's not a specific application, so I don't think there's
Well, the next
a clock on
agenda,
this, right?
well, we've opened the public hearing tonight, so now there's 35 days to keep the public hearing open, which would take us to June 30th. We have 2 regularly scheduled meetings on the 9th or the 23rd. I don't know whether Attorney Russo wants to advocate for either of those dates.
June 9th would be ideal.
Okay.
All right, so we will hold the public hearing open until June 9th.
Thank you.
And we will move on to the next item, 354 Pequot Avenue zoning map change request by Attorney John Fallon for the Gillif Manufacturing Corporation from Designed Industrial to Design Commercial District.
Do you want him to bring up the map? The zoning map?
And compliance review for expansion of the antique store use in the Designed Industrial District Zone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here tonight representing 2 clients, actually, one of which is seated right next to me. And this is Kristen Crump, who owns Foxtrot Antiques, and she'll be speaking to you in a minute. And the other is the Gillif Manufacturing Corporation, which owns the subject property at 354 Pequot Avenue. Seated to my right is Mr. Pat Rose of Rose Tissot Architects, who prepared the floor plan and what you have in front of you. 2 applications here. One is a compliance application in order to expand the present retail area of Kristen's business, which we're going to hear about in a minute. But the other zone, or the other application, is a zone change application. Change the zone of the property from designed industrial to design commercial. What's the interplay? Well, the catalyst for why we're here is to keep Kristen in Southport Village, because with only 950 square feet, she and her store and her patrons, many of whom have written to you, need more space if they're going to remain viable as an integral part of Southport Village. However, the property, her store, is a pre-existing non-conforming use. It is in the design industrial district where retail uses are not permitted. Therefore, we are seeking, and I'll talk about that subsequently, a zone change to design commercial. My client, the Gillif Corporation, has, I represent publicly on their behalf and in my own reputation, there is no agenda here, no agenda to do anything other than to provide Kristen with the opportunity to continue to grow and thrive in Southport Village. And by the way, if and when any individual, my client or a successor, should you change the zone, and I'll elaborate on that presently, seek to do anything different, be it a structural alteration of the building or change of use of the building, that's going to have to come back to you for a review and hearing. But let me focus first on what brings us here, and that is Kristen's business. She's going to elaborate, and I'm going to get out of the chair in a minute. But Kristen has operated the antique shop for 5 years, Kristen?
In our 5th year.
Her 5th year. Before that, she was in Ridgefield. It's a unique and beautiful store if you haven't been there. As I said, the letters that you've received speak more eloquently than I can, not only about the nature of the store, but the nature of the person and the business philosophy and how she's integrated herself and the business into Southport Village. But ergo, she's only got 984 square feet. And the floor plan that's in front of you tonight and is the subject of the compliance application, which you can't reach until you approve the zone change, but you can't grant a compliance application for a use that's not permitted, and you can't allow a pre-existing non-conforming use to be expanded. But we seek a 3,900 square foot store. That will provide, as Kristen will elaborate on momentarily, an opportunity to expand her offerings to the community and provide enhanced shopping experience for her patrons. But I said I couldn't speak as eloquently as Kristen about the nature of her business. So I'm going to get out of the chair for a minute and ask her to talk to you about her vision, her business. And then I'll come back and try to tie it to the legal matter here, and that is the need for the zone change. Kristen.
Oh, hello. So my name is Kristen Crump and I've been operating Foxtrot Homes since 2012. And yes, we are going on our 5th year now in Southport Village, which has been a complete labor of love and such a happy place for everybody in the community. Our shop includes an assortment of items for the home and personal use. So we have antiques, we have vintage items, gifts, home fragrance, original art, tabletop, wallpapers, ceramics, and more. I am eternally grateful for the support I've had with this business, which is continuing to thrive. And we do look to expand the shop space to provide more space for the experience and lifestyle in Southport. The number one thing that I have focused on since the beginning of this business is community. We have thoroughly enjoyed connecting with this community, and we work on helping to sponsor Santa coming to town, and we work on all of these, the Pequot Library Garden Stroll we sponsor and things like that. So also I would like to talk about, from a sourcing perspective, how we source. Because I feel like at this time in the world, as a small business owner, which there's less and less of us as time goes by, we really try to support small businesses made in the US. We have a veteran-owned business that we support in terms of the selection that we offer. We do have secondhand. We also support women-owned businesses, local artisans, and also fair trade. So that's where we really feel like we set ourselves apart from a traditional big box store. Just to kind of give you a little background on that. We also help families when they're dealing with the loss of a loved one and don't know what to do with these items. And we kind of become foster parents for these items and rehome them. And it's been helpful in both helping the families and then finding families that love the items as well. Everyone that comes through the door is told that they are welcome to Foxtrot Home, and every kid that leaves the store usually leaves the few Fox stickers. That is if they want them, because some of the kids are, growing out of stickers, but it's just a little thing that we like to do. But what is, really just a retail shop means so much more to myself, and I think to our following, with times of uncertainty and stress and rising costs all around, whether it's gas prices or rising costs in big box stores. It's really nice to, I think, still have a small business in the historic village that supports the community. So with this expansion, we look to enhance our current selections. We'll have an even more beautiful and curated collection of goods. I'd also like to tell you, as someone that is an antiques and vintage dealer, history is extremely important to me and has always been important to me. And I feel that the concept of telling the story of how manufacturing shaped Pequot Avenue is really important. And I think that the building itself and keeping the lines of the building, it's what the street is and has been. One thing I'm also planning is to tell the story of how American manufacturing really set the stage for Southport and other areas in Connecticut that many people don't know as new developments are happening or things. So I think it's really important to keep track of the history so that we can kind of grow with the future with the community. So we're going to have a little story wall where we talk about manufacturing. I've also asked the company if they can save one of the original wire winding machines, which we're talking about setting up behind like plexiglass where the kids could come and see how these machines worked and what the product was used for. So I like to continue to tell that story. Let's see. So then also, in the space, we're also offering for the community, we're going to be doing creative workshops. So we have a watercolor artist that's going to come in and do painting classes. We have a needlepoint artist that's going to teach people how to paint their own canvases and do needlepoint. We're going to have different painting crafts. We're going to have activities for families to do together. We're also going to plan to have Santa for the holidays and hot cocoa and chocolate for the kids, and a local artist or a local author coming to read their holiday book. So we really hope that you view this not just as an expansion of retail, but really as an investment in the continued lifestyle and community of Southport Village. Foxtrot Home is a small, community-focused business with a proven history of care, respect, and local connection. And with this approval, we can preserve the character of the building, honor its history, improve its safety and usability, and continue to offer this happy, creative, welcoming place for the Southport community for many years to come.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you.
I told you she was more articulate than me. That was excellent. Yeah, I mean, first, let me say a few words too about Jelliff Corporation. Jelliff Corporation has been a very sensitive and constructive steward of this property. They are no newcomers to this building. They've owned this building for
1880.
1880. So we're not talking about some developer swooping in here with a plan. They are stewards to this building. They share Kristen's respect and sensitivity to the building. And the only reason that they're pursuing this at cost to them is because they believe so much in Kristen's vision and how important that is to Southport. Okay, so I've set the table, but you can't get there on 900 square feet. And I can't get to 3,900 square feet unless we confront and deal with the zone change issue. If you could put that up, John, just so we have some context. Obviously, I respectfully would submit to you that the historic zoning of this building as industrial property, and it is historic going back decades and decades, makes no sense to anyone in 2026. It doesn't make any sense to my client, the owner of the building. It doesn't make any sense to my client, Foxtrot Homes, who wants to expand with the vision that Kristen has described. And it doesn't make any sense to the neighborhood. And it doesn't make any sense to the town, because you cannot find me one person, I would expect, in Southport who really thinks that long-term planning and vision benefits from this property being zoned industrial and therefore opened up. It's a sizable parcel. How large is the parcel, Pat?
2 acres, just under 2 acres.
2 acres. And then look at the permitted uses in your design industrial district. You say, oh, there'll never be. This is Connecticut in 2026. There'll never be anybody wanting to use that property for industrial purposes. Trucking depots, trucking driving schools. I'm not going to read to you your own regulations, but it makes no sense. Nobody wants this property to be zoned in industrial zoning. And the zone change will not change anything regarding your continued authority with regard to this parcel. I've read some online comments which are not correct. They're ill-advised. I've read that, whoa, this is a Trojan horse. If you change the zone, to use a term that's come up in other contexts tonight, there's so many as-of-right uses that they could bring. There are no as-of-right uses. Nothing can happen if you change this zone. The only thing that can happen is that Kristen Crump can execute the plan she just laid out for you in a facility that's large enough to do that. Their building cannot be touched in its exterior unless the commission comes back, someone comes back to the commission. The use of the building cannot be changed unless we come back to the commission and satisfy your standards for site plan approval and special permit. Nobody is going to take this zone change and run up and put 2 stories of residential on top. Doesn't work like that. But the fact of the matter is, this makes no sense to have this property zoned industrially. Now, you've already shown your sensitivity to this. You can see you know, the reason, by the way, we didn't seek to change it to the neighborhood design district is because the building doesn't comply with any of the standards of the neighborhood design district building. So you'd be creating a non-conforming building, and we're trying to get away from non-conformities. But if you look, you've already, I don't know if it shows it, does the property on 95 Old Post Road, that shows on the map here, right? Yes.
Correct. It's
Okay.
the skinny triangle.
The triangle. That's property that, what, about a year or 2 years ago?
Less than a year.
Less than a year ago, you were requested to change the zone of that property, the white triangle there, from design industrial to design commercial, and you did. So there's nothing inconsistent with doing this. And in fact, it's every element of good planning. When it comes to zone changes, do my Vanna White, I haven't done that in a while.
Thank you.
So what I've just given you is just a very few citations from our Connecticut law. I won't read them to you, but I'll highlight them. And what they stand for is the proposition that you have no greater discretion than when you act legislatively on a matter pertaining to a zone change. So again, a zoning commission, when amending zoning regulations or passing on a zone change, acts in a legislative capacity, which gives it very broad discretion. And the Superior Court on Appeal should not substitute its judgment for that of the commission. Again, broad discretion. And you can read through these. The last one I think is important as well. The upgrading of a zone to a more restrictive classification, which is in the interest of the community, is almost always upheld. So there's no question here, and you'll look through this. And I hope too you read, you got the letters, and I know how diligent you guys are in reading the letters that come to you. But do read the letters and emails that came in on Kristen's behalf, because they reconfirm the very special place that Foxtrot Homes is, and that ties into the zone change. So you have every right to make this change. You have the greatest discretion to do it. You've previously acted less than a year ago in the same neighborhood, granting exactly the same application. And it is in the best interests of the community to do so, because the dinosaur of this property being designed industrial, and notwithstanding the wonderful industrial heritage and history that Kristen, given the opportunity, will celebrate as part of her store, it makes no sense whatsoever for all the reasons I said. And it isn't compatible with the surrounding zone, be they design residence, neighborhood design, etc. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think that concerns that I've heard without, pre-visioning them, but they're based upon an assumption that somehow there's some big grand scheme here that if you change this zone, you are going to lose control of any future development of this property. And the two things I would respond to that are very simple. It's not true, as you know, because you know how your own regulations work. And this property owner, who's been a steward to this property for well over a century, there's no game plan here. The only game plan is her. And we need to address her needs so that we don't lose not only what's a great business representative in Southport now, but what it could be when you hear the vision that she has for what she would do with the additional space that she can only get if you grant the zone change consistently with what you did at 95 Old Post Road. That's what I got.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
Well, I think the location of John Street versus Pequot Avenue, a little different, but I do understand what you're saying. I'm a huge fan of the store. I think it's wonderful. About the building, what percentage of the building currently is Foxtrot and what percentage of the building will be Foxtrot if expanded? That's number one. Number two, what are the businesses are currently in the building? The third is what percentage of the building is occupied currently?
Okay, good questions. I'll let Pat, he's better at math than me. I can tell you right now, we are 945 square feet and we want to take it to 3,900. Now, he'll give you the percentages and the answers to the other questions.
The total floor is 84,000 square feet. So it's 10%, less than 10%. You know, it's
5%.
You know, 5%.
That includes the parking lot, or is that just the building?
Well, that's just the building itself.
Okay.
And then the other questions, Pat, if you know, is, do you know what percentage of the building is occupied currently?
I don't.
I can get you that information. And the third question was what the other tenants in the building are?
The majority of the tenants that are in that building are businesses.
Okay, what I'll do, Commissioner, is I have some sense that we're not going to close the hearing tonight based upon conversations I've had with my brother. That's Mr. Green. And that's a term of art among us lawyers. But I'll get you that information for the next hearing.
Are you familiar with the commercial to residential by right conversion if less than 50% of the building is not occupied?
I am familiar with that. I don't know if that's applicable here. Probably not, but I think we're more occupied than that. But I will get you the breakdown of existing tenants and current occupied space.
There's businesses, which are offices in the upper floors and some of the lower floors, and there are storage. There's some jelly jiff storage that still happens on site.
Great.
I'll get you a complete back. I'll submit that through staff, so you'll have that.
Questions? Commissioner Braun? Commissioner Braun?
Well, I know we have a lot of changes in the last 6 months, both our own regulations as well as the housing law. So maybe Attorney Fallon, you could address the housing law, because we passed a regulation allowing commercial to mixed use conversions, but my understanding is the housing law says on or after July 1st, they can do as of right conversion into mixed use or residential, but we made it mixed use. And that's with a summary review, which is no public hearings, although could come to our commission, but we would have no discretion. So, and then our regulations also allowed conversion, allowed in any commercial district as a separate regulation, to be 52 feet tall, 3 stories of residential above commercial. Would this fall into that category or not if you convert the zone from industrial to commercial? That's my concern, that even though this occupant has a small store, it's a permanent change of zone. So in the future, yeah.
Right. This is like a law school question. There's a lot of
multifaceted.
Let me see if I dissect them correctly.
Yeah.
First of all, I think as Commissioner Monahan's question related to, I think the as of right conversion has a requirement that there be for a period of, I think it's 1 year, either vacancy or 50% occupancy. But so I don't think that would be applicable here, because I don't think we meet that standard. Number two, certainly if you change the zone to the design commercial district, then the provisions of the design commercial district, as you've amended them over the last year, would be applicable to this property. But number three, nothing can happen with regard, there is no as of right opportunity there. And if somebody wanted to come and add 2 floors to the building to do, residential component, or to do anything else by way of modifying the building or modifying the uses of the building, that would not be impacted by 8002. And we'd be, we'd have to come to you and go through the normal process of special permit applications and public hearing. And then the last thing I would say, just being redundant, is if the concern from the standpoint of your planning function is issues like long-term protection and vibrancy of the community, then you sure as heck, in my opinion, don't want it to remain zoned industrially, okay? Because it's zoned industrially, number one, exposes you to future uses that are not out of the realm of possibility, considering the location being in Southport, proximity to the railroad station, reasonable proximity to the thruway. But the other thing that it doesn't do is it doesn't protect you should we not have another moratorium from an 8-30G application, because there's a fallacy afoot that because property is zoned industrial and because the statute has a provision is it that industrial property is exempt from 8-30G, very few people know, but that statutory provision has been modified in court decisions where the court has said, however, if the community in question has allowed elements of residential use in any of their other industrial zones, then the prohibition of an 8-30G in an industrial zone does not apply. And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we have no interest in doing that. But that is the case in Fairfield, where we have designed industrial property that has been opened up, especially in the Commerce Drive area and the Black Rock Turnpike area and Black Rock train station area to industrial use. So long-winded answer, but the point that I'm trying to make is, no, I don't see any circumstance where 8002 comes into play here. And any change of use of this building, structurally or use-wise, is going to have to follow the normal provisions. And you'll be in better control of that in terms of long-range planning than leaving this dinosaur roaming on the street, zoned industrially.
Okay, yeah, and it is confusing how our regulations interact with the housing law, but once we convert to commercial, then any structure in the commercial zone can be 52 feet tall, right? And can have more residential, et cetera, right?
Not as of right. You know, again, that term's been thrown around here a lot tonight, and that has nothing to do with this application. If you change the zone, then the standards of the design commercial district would apply here, but that would be subject to a complete special permit and site plan review by this commission.
Unless there was, using 8002, a commercial to mixed use conversion of up to a 9-plex, I believe, would be as of right, summary review, which is almost as of right. So that could be done, right?
I know 8002 is a focus for you, and I respect that, but it has nothing to do with what we're doing here.
That could be done if this was commercial, couldn't it?
Well,
it can't be done if it's industrial.
I don't think the direct provisions of 8002 would even have application there unless you got into the situation, which we'll get to the data on, where the building was vacant or less than 50%.
But
so
I don't. 802 doesn't say that. Doesn't say it has to be abandoned. It just says
it has to be unused for a year.
No, not it. There's another one that was passed a year earlier that says that, but the 8002 just allows conversion. I don't know. That's something that if this, I hope you'll address, and I hope Attorney Green and you will both address it, because it is extremely confusing for anyone, even lawyers on the commission, to know how the interplay of 8002 and our own zoning regulations work and what could be done on this property, despite the best, intent of everyone there.
Well, yeah, I understand, but that. I would say to you, then, it becomes sort of a classic consideration of your planning function. You can look down the tunnel and say, well, could they do this? Will they happen? What would this happen? Notwithstanding the protections you'd have by continuing to review it, or is there a more positive or dire need to get this building, this property rezoned so it's not zoned industrially, which I think opens you up to far more less attractive considerations, and also will prevent Kristen from fulfilling her vision, probably even staying there.
I mean, it's a big building, well, I guess you'll come back with those answers. There's no way, obviously, of expanding within the building, I suppose. But I do think it is relevant for us to understand once we change the zone, different things apply in the future, and that never goes back. We're not going to change it back.
I don't disagree with you on that. I think that's a fundamental part of your planning function. It's just my belief strongly, as I've said, without being too repetitive, that looking at those situations and other options that could apply if the property remained zoned industrially, the better thing to do, as you did with 95 Old Post, is change the zone to design commercial where you will retain control over any future change in the building or its use.
And getting back to the 830G, can you next time perhaps, or if you have it now, give us any court cases that say that any residential and any other industrial property would affect this one to make
No,
it
I'll get
subject
to
to
the cases.
830G?
Yeah,
I thought it was just this property.
No,
that
what the cases say, just so I
Yeah.
didn't confuse
Yeah.
or misspeak,
Yeah.
is that there's a prohibition in 8-30G that says the provisions of 8-30G
Mhm.
will not pertain to industrially zoned properties.
Mhm.
That provision has been tempered by court cases that have said that the exemption of 8-30G in industrially zoned properties will not apply if the municipality in that case has industrially zoned property, which it has under its regulations already opened up to some aspects of residential use. That's that.
And I thought that was, I thought it was confined to this property as opposed to any other industrial zone
No,
property.
I was just trying to make the point
Yeah.
that the fact that the property is zoned industrial does not preclude, if you want to look at dark, terrible scenarios, an 8-30G application at some point in the future. Because in Fairfield, I think we'd fall under those cases that say, hey, you've already got residential uses in portions of your industrial zones.
So if you could just give a citation for the cases that say
I'll get to
any
that.
other property, not this one, once we open it up to residential in the industrial zone, because I thought it was confined to only if we allowed residential in this industrial zone, not any other one in town, but yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
I'll get you the cases.
that'd be great. Thanks.
How many parking spaces do you currently have in the building? That's why I asked also in terms of how many businesses are currently there. Does the parking that currently exists on site, is it adequate for the number of businesses operating in the building? Because there's clearly a lot of pressure on Pequot Avenue to make sure that there are spaces for cafes, the new restaurant going in, the new.
How many spaces do we
There's
have?
62 spaces on 354 Jelly Jiff and about 25 spaces on 375.
So a total of 87.
About 87. It's a little fuzzy on the other one. It's got some spaces that exist.
Director Posey?
I just want to thank you for coming here today. And I think, as so many of us have seen tonight, we're often confronted with questions of changing regulations, approving developments that we have to, because we have to follow the law, regardless of our personal opinions as residents of this town. If we don't follow the law, ma'am, we get sued in state court, and then the town is assessed damages against our unwillingness to follow the law. So we're not pro developer, we're pro this town, and we're pro protecting this town. And we have to follow the law as it's written. So that's what we do. That's why we ran. So, but anyway.
Questions for Attorney Fallon?
My question is not so much for Attorney Fallon as it is just to say that it's increasingly rare as a commissioner that we have an opportunity to do something to support someone like Kristen, who has been a pillar of this community, who has become, at least to my understanding, sort of anecdotally, somebody who is a beloved member of the community, who has helped people, as you said, rehome their possessions. And I think questions about, what might happen if in a far off land, while appropriate for us to ask, I think need to be balanced against the reality when somebody as wonderful as Kristen comes before this commission and we have the opportunity to do something to support the community of Southport in changing a zoning designation that, as Attorney Fallon very thoroughly pointed out, no longer fits the location for which it has been zoned. That's my 2 cents. Not so much a question, but a statement.
Any questions? Attorney Fallon, anything else on your end?
Not at this point, just if there's an opportunity for a final summary or the need for it, I'd like to do that.
We'll move to public comment. Once again, if anyone's joining remotely who wishes to be heard, please sign in the chat and indicate you'd like to speak. Attorney Green, are you deferring comments on this one?
I may.
Okay.
Once again, for the record, Joel Green of Offices of Green and Gross. It's my pleasure to again appear before you this evening on behalf of the Sasquatch Conservancy for Southport. And just a few quick comments. I think that, first of all, we don't ascribe any ill intent on anyone involved with this application. Everyone I've spoken with loves this business. It is a beloved business. And my several members of our board count themselves as active customers and appreciate that business. Having said that, I also think that we all share, and I accept everyone at their word, we all share the same objective here. And certainly the objective is to support this business, but this business right now occupies 1% of the square footage in this building and looks to occupy like 4% of the building. And I think there are, and again, I'm not suggesting that anyone has an intent, but I believe there are potential outcomes that could be troublesome to organizations such as Sasquatch and could change the fabric of the center of Southport. And so Attorney Fallon and I have had conversations. We hope to have a meeting and see if there is a way to agree on, I guess, some terms and conditions that can sort of achieve what everyone is looking to achieve, including supporting the business, preserving the character of the community, and sort of bringing that about in a way that we can all link arms and come before the commission with some ideas on this text amendment next time. And I thank the commission for the opportunity to do that.
Is that meeting scheduled already?
No, we just actually, Mr. Green, we talked briefly last week, but he called me this afternoon and basically made the same comments he just made to you. Obviously, I'll talk to anybody at any time, and I think that's the prudent thing to do. So we haven't scheduled the meeting yet, but you know, if we continued this pursuant to his request 2 weeks, that would set up a time frame for us to make sure we got this meeting done, which I'd like to do because for Kristen's sake, I'd like to keep this moving.
Okay. So that's it on your comments for the time being?
Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Any member of the public wish to speak on this item? Mr. Mullen, anyone online?
There is not.
Okay, so we will hold this public hearing open until June 7th, June 9th as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to 755 Melville Avenue, a special permit application by Fairfield Public Schools to add more than 250 cubic yards of fill in conjunction with converting existing sports fields to turf athletic fields for high school and a design residence R3 zone. Good evening.
Good evening. So, Jonathan, am I able to share my screen in the meeting?
Is it listed as, what's your,
It's just under my name, just Kurt Lawrence. bear with me a moment. Let me set up here for you. Okay, all right. Well, good evening, everyone. Kurt Lowenstein, professional engineer in Connecticut with Land Tech, offices in Westport, Connecticut here on behalf of Town of Fairfield Public Schools. To my right here is Angeles Papa George, the Executive Director of Operations for the public schools, and also Gina Giacomo, sorry, who is the athletic director for Ward. So you've got all kind of the players. We were retained by the town to assist them with redeveloping one of their existing fields. So reference 755 Melville Avenue, commonly known to everybody as Ward High School. The L-shaped field here. Is that?
It's Commissioner Braun, I believe.
So this L-shaped grass field here, currently it's, it's used for some games, but it's a grass field. It has all of the downsides to grass fields of when it rains heavily. It limits the utilization of the field. Also, the odd shape of it, it's not quite big enough to get two fields, kind of 90 degrees to each other. You really can only get one field. So it's a lot of grass for not a lot of utilization for the school. So what we were asked to do is help the town come up with a better utilization of the property here. The intent is to put in two new artificial turf fields. So the existing stadium field that's to the northwest on the plan here, that is an artificial turf field. That's the prime game field. That's where the stadium is, the lights, that's where the magic happens. But by adding two new artificial turf fields here, it's going to provide two more game fields for Ward High School. The artificial turf fields will be striped for soccer, which is what you're seeing on the screen here now. They'll be striped for boys and girls lacrosse. And they'll also be striped for field hockey. The field on the left here, we'll call this field number 1. It's large enough where it could be utilized for dual use of field hockey, dual use of soccer. Lacrosse will be solely on field number 1. But you understand the general idea is more utilization, more simultaneous play is a great benefit to all of the student athletes in the town of Fairfield, specifically at this site for Fairfield Ward. The benefits of going artificial turf versus grass is because post rain, you can get people out on the field. As it stands now, this field is a poor draining field. So when we get heavy rains like we got over the weekend of Memorial Day here, there's an extended period of time that fields really can't be used. This creates a much more professional setup. This will give options for hosting tournaments, for more higher quality play for the student athletes at Ward. There'll be no lights associated with this. These are unlit fields. So the application in front of you is for a special permit application solely because of the fill. We're exceeding the 250 cubic yards. The existing topography of the site. So this is the existing condition survey that you're looking at here. It generally pitches from northwest to southeast, basically towards Knapp Highway, which is along the bottom here. The pitch is not suitable for proper artificial turf fields. So the fill that's being brought in is really to level out this area to make it usable as from an artificial turf standpoint. The turf fields themselves are fully pervious. So the top section is that infill as is mandated in all of Town of Fairfield fields. There'll be no rubber, no crumb rubber, no virgin rubber. There's there's a laundry list of things that fall under the rubber category. That's not what we're proposing here. We have not formally selected a turf company for this yet, but the intent is that we would be using Brock Fill, which is, for anybody not familiar, is I'll just switch my screen so everybody can see what that looks like. Essentially, once that comes up, essentially it's an organic wood infill. Think, little tiny small rounded pieces of wood that gets mixed in with sand, and that's what represents the infill top. Doesn't have any kind of petrochemicals in there. It's not petroleum based, so it meets all of the standards from an organic environmental infill standpoint. So that's what we would be using as the infill. Below that, the turf system will consist of essentially 18 inches of clean wash stone. So from a stormwater standpoint, if you're looking at grass versus stone, you have more voids available in stone. On average, soil's around 30%. Stone is around 40%. So as far as stormwater capability and storage within these fields, you're getting a tremendous benefit as compared to just a normal grass field. There's an existing drainage system located within the field that services the school building and the parking lot. That will remain as is because we're going to be filling the field. We'll be well above that. So that won't impact any of the functionality of the existing system that's in place. There's portions of existing drainage. This would be manholes and piping that runs through the westerly side of the field here and eventually discharges out to a flared end section right adjacent to the existing tennis courts that are there. If anybody's been out there during the spring months, you'll see that there's quite a bit of water that makes its way out of that flared end section. So that infrastructure will be staying in its place, but we'll be making some modifications to kind of clean that area up to solve some of the nuisance flooding that they get in this area. So this is the layout of, you saw the rendering of it, but from a technical standpoint, this is what the new fields will look like. The gray hatched area is where it'll be artificial turf. The balance of the area, other than existing hardscapes, that will all be lawn. So once they finish the turf fields, it'll be all restored to lawn around it, which is the current condition that's out there. Stormwater. As I was saying, we'll be making some small modifications here. The existing stormwater infrastructure will be collected. We'll be eliminating the surface flared end section discharge. We'll be collecting that into a manhole and then ultimately proposing a direct connection into the town stormwater system located in Naps Highway. There's a common catch basin in the lower left-hand corner that I'm circling with my mouse here. That is where all of the stormwater discharge from this field gets to now. You've got the offsite that comes out of the flared end section. Then you basically have the whole balance of the field that makes its way up against the back of that tennis court. There's a swale that directs it around that tennis court and then follows through this corridor here. And then it makes its way, meanders its way into that catch basin. So ultimately gets into the town system that's there. So we're not really introducing new water. We're just getting it there in a more efficient and effective way. Again, eliminating some of that nuisance flooding that's there. This stormwater connection, this has also been submitted to the town engineering department. They provided comments. I don't know if that made it into your packets or not. It's acceptable to them proposing the connection. They had some minor comments that we'd be looking to finalize with them, prior to a zoning permit. But nothing that is, major here from a design standpoint. You're getting, again, a huge utilization of the site, which is what you have now. It's up to date on the latest standards of artificial turf fields. So the main stadium that's there is a newer turf system, but that was put in, I think, 2018, 2019. So it's now coming up on its 10-year lifespan. These fields are usually in the, 10 to 12-year lifespan. So these new fields, they'll be up to the latest and greatest, and you're going to get a lot of longevity out of them. Total site disturbance on this, we are just under 5 acres, so we're underneath of the SWIP requirement here. Any of the SWIP related items will be handled at a local level with the town engineering department. We're already in communication with the engineer's office.
Which is a stormwater permit, right?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it's a glorified soil erosion, sediment control, water quality provision. It's just anything that goes to the state, lots of paperwork and monitoring. It's really nothing beyond what we ordinarily would do, weekly site inspections and inspection reports. So nothing out of the ordinary with this type of project. We are underneath that threshold, so we don't need to file with the state, but nonetheless, those provisions are in place. The last thing I want to touch on before I'll turn it over to any questions is landscaping wise. As I mentioned, the areas outside of the fields will be restored as lawn. But we will also be installing a significant row of arborvitaes here. They're spaced in such a way, they're a little tighter than usual spacing is. So as they grow in, it'll basically form a hedge. So really screening this area for any adjacent neighbors to the west. We'll also be replacing the fence that's along. There's a fence there now, but it's a little beat up. So we're going to be putting a fresh 6-foot high fence on the neighbor side of the trees. So you're going to kind of have a double layer of screening for any folks that are on that side of the property line there. That's kind of it as far as the overall project. Happy to answer any questions, or if you want to take public comment and then come back.
The letter from engineering that Mr. Lansing referenced.
I did not receive it before the end of the day, but I did get a visit from the town engineer who alerted me that there would be a letter.
Okay.
So I can certainly make sure that that's in the folder for prior to making a decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Monahan.
How many grass fields are remaining?
On the site, there's just the baseball and softball fields.
There's a
essentially.
multi-use field in between them.
Yeah, so you've got softball to the north here, and then baseball's here, and then you've got, kind of open grass in between the two when they don't have the temporary fence.
So you mentioned a higher quality play on turf field. I completely disagree. I have 3 daughters who are Division I athletes, and the effects of turf on the body should not be discounted. And so while I agree that our climate does not allow for, play every day on the field, opposed to converting all of our grass fields to turf because we can never go back. And I've watched countless children, young women, young men, injure their body parts on turf that would not have injured those very likely on grass. So, I have a great presentation. I think they're gonna move forward with it anyway. I felt compelled to state that. So I do not believe your line about a higher quality of play should be, something that we believe.
I hear you. No, that's a fair point. There's cost benefit, I would say, to anything we do there.
And I think athletes, when it comes to, sometimes are upset that they only have turf to play on. So their presentation, I think, all the buttons.
Other questions? Commissioner Braun.
Sorry, I was muted. I have 4 questions. I couldn't tell from the drainage report what the increase in impervious surface is. Understand you're saying with a new type of turf or a more modern, updated type, there's less impervious surface being created. Can you differentiate between this type of turf and like Fairfield University? Because there is no end of complaining from neighbors about flooding situations that took place because of the turf field on the corner of Round Hill Road and Barlow Road, I guess. How is this different than that turf? Is this less impervious surface? Is this less of an issue? Because as recently as I think a year ago, it was a significant problem with flooding.
I'm not aware of that specific flooding issue. What I can say is an artificial turf field is not impervious. It's, on the other hand, it's a pervious material. Water that lands on the turf will be collected within the stone reservoir below the infill. And then there's a series of collection pipes of under drains that will collect that water. And in this case, it will be directed into the town stormwater system located in Naps Highway. So there won't be any kind of surface runoff, which may be the case on that one. Again, I can't speak to the specifics of that.
Also, where you're elevating it, you're bringing in, I don't know, 10,000 cubic yards of fill. How high are you elevating it, and how close is that elevation to where the houses are? Like, is that going to create an issue with being elevated? And I'm thinking about screening and flooding as well. It's very close to a lot of houses.
Gotcha. Along that side, along the westerly side, just pull up the grading plan here. The grades along the property line will remain for the most part. There will be some regrading, but if you look at, for example, this 184 contour, the existing grade not too far inward, maybe 10 or 15 feet, is 184.3, which is a very modest fill. The majority of the filling takes place with field number 2 in this area. And as we come down towards the bottom here, that's simply because the grade, if you've been out to the site, as you come down to where the tennis court and the basketball court is there now, there's a fair dip from the main field area. So we're really just kind of leveling that area off. This is where the primary amount of the fill is being placed. And, what we're showing on our plans is the total quantity, but it is worth noting that the majority of the, quote unquote, fill that's being brought in is crushed stone. We're not intending to import any actual soil fill here. We will reuse in the areas beyond the field, we'll reuse stripped material from the field, the existing field itself, as much as we can. The balance would go off-site, and really all the import is the stone itself. These fields all are equipped with an 18-inch deep stone section, which is actually quite a bit deeper than a typical artificial turf field would be. So from a drainage perspective, Commissioner Braun, you actually have more storage than you typically would for an artificial turf field, and certainly more as compared to if you had the equivalent depth of soil. Because of
and is there, yeah, oh, yeah, thank you, that's very helpful. Is there an increase in impervious surface in your stormwater report? It's so technical, it's hard for me to really read it.
No, the turf fields themselves are not impervious. Again, they're a pervious material. The only thing that could be semi-deemed impervious is we're going to be extending from the end of the asphalt that's here now. We're going to be extending a little gravel strip, so for access onto the field. But again, that's going to be gravel. It will be pervious. It's been sized for, the analysis on this site for stormwater is the 100-year storm. So we did consider that when we were sizing, even though it's a very small area. But again, taking into consideration the stormwater impacts of that road expansion.
And 2 more questions. The other fields that are not turf, is there a plan to convert those to turf? And if not, why not?
I don't believe so, but I will let Gina and Angela speak to that.
And, yeah, go on. Yeah, sorry.
There are no intentions right now of turning the baseball or softball fields into turf. I think it's mostly financial really. Yeah, they were just redone, but we also, wanted to start with a project that we thought would actually be feasible and doable, before asking for an entire complex. Fairfield Ward competes in the FSAC. We currently have the least amount of turf fields available to our student athletes, which creates a huge impact. Our student athletes practice well to 10 p.m. at night because they all have to stack onto the one turf field. We do offer access to the grass field. We have nobody take advantage of that. We do not play any competitions on any grass fields in the entire FSAC. Really not in the CIAC either. So we are increasing their development, maybe not necessarily, maybe quality is a subjective word, but the development of the student athletes, they all need to practice and play on turf to be able to compete, with their peers in the FSAC and the CIAC.
Is the main purpose to help the athletes compete every day, or is it to host tournaments? It sounded like they were also hoping to host more tournaments.
My goal is to help the athletes compete, improve their quality of life, their practice schedules. Right now, our athletes, I presented at the Board of Ed this very dynamic, scattered schedule and fluctuates. This past season, we actually had to bus our student athletes to Bridgeport, and we had to rent turf fields in Bridgeport because of the lack of turf fields at Ward. And also for an equity issue to our peers over at Fairfield Ludlow High School that have access to the new Roger Ludlow Middle School field, as well as their turf stadium, as well as walking distance to Tomlinson. So there's, to increase some of the equity there as well.
And one last question. Could you address the health concerns that what Commissioner Monahan mentioned? Also, I have environmental concerns, just I've done some reading on this in the past, and maybe this is different, but if they expire every 10 years, that means every 10 years, approximately, the whole thing has to be thrown out. Where does it go? Into our landfill, another landfill? What happens to it?
So the replacement of turf fields is not a full replacement of the whole depth of the turf system. It's really the top layer where the infill is. With the tech that they're putting into these fields now, the pads that they, kind of the shock absorption pads that's basically at the top of the stone, the first thing that goes down for the artificial turf are shock pads, essentially. Those have a dual life cycle, so you get two fields out of the cost of that. But basically what they're going to do is they're going to pull the infill out. They're going to pull that top, what we think of turf, the grass field that comes off. The pads, other than ones that may be damaged being pulled up, they stay in place, and then they roll the new turf on top of that. That's the typical replacement cycle. And again, 10, 12 years, they can get even more out of that, but that's just, to be transparent, that's the average. You're looking at 10 to 12 years for an artificial field.
Do these emit microplastics? Because that's a big concern now. Like, is there any, I don't know much about it, but that's a concern, microplastics now, like during rainstorms or when you have to replace it?
I truthfully I can't tell you affirmatively. That's just not my area of expertise on as far as like the manufacturing of it. What I can say is the infill does not, and that's one of the issues with using the crumb rubber infill. So from that perspective, I can say, yes, it's not emitting any microplastic. As far as the turf itself, that I would have to get back to you, Commissioner Braun.
So the turf is not grass, it's some kind of plastic?
It's a synthetic, yes, it is.
Okay. But you're saying that this type of turf is more evolved than what we used maybe 10 years ago because the infill is more of a natural substance as opposed to plastic?
That's correct. So the Ward field, like the stadium field, is a rubber. It's the, kind of what we all grew up in thinking of an artificial turf field, the little black beads. This will not. They've, as things have evolved, they've done research on the heat, the off-gassing that can happen with the crumb rubber infill. They've come up with new technologies around that. They now have options for virgin rubber, meaning it was never, all the crumb were essentially old tires that they, have pulverized into the tiny little pellets, and then those are being reused. They have options now that's, again, what they call virgin rubber. It's never been utilized other than made in the factory. It's not an old tire. It's not any kind of reclaimed rubber. And then they've also developed some other what they call organic infill. So
And this is the organic one?
this is one of them, yeah.
The
So
lily pine, yes.
yeah.
Okay.
So Brock fill is essentially, little tiny wood pellets essentially. There are a few others. There's EnviroFill is one that's basically a sand coated with a silica. That's what was used over at Roger Ludlow Middle School. That also meets all of the environmental considerations. And there's some new proprietary ones that have come out that are cork based. There are some that are coconut husk based. Those ones, from what I've seen, tend to be a little less reliable. The coconut requires irrigation on it to keep it from burning out and drying out. The cork, I've heard some horror stories of all the cork floating away out of the field in big rainstorms. So we've done an analysis of what are the available options, because the town of Fairfield has taken a proactive stand on the infill. Not every town has done that. Fairfield is one kind of at the front tip of the spear, so to speak, on that end. So of the options that we have for infill, we think we've selected the best quality material from meeting the organic standards as well as playability. The wood and sand creates as close to a rubber bounce as you can kind of simulate without actually having rubber.
Is that also better for health purposes for people getting injured?
That I can't say.
Was that your concern?
That was one of my concerns, yeah. And that's the end of my question. So yeah, if you have any, yeah.
There are certainly schools of thought that there is an increase in ACL injuries on turf fields. That typically takes place with different infills, ones that don't allow the foot to move and pivot quite the same with the padding underneath. My son has had 2 ACL tears, one on grass and one on turf. So I'm not really sure where I stand on that. But again, my kids play Division I sports as well, and they only play on artificial surfaces as much as we want. We do not have the irrigation. We are not allowed the fertilization, and we are not allowed the chemicals necessary to have the most beautiful grass field. Right now, our grass fields pose a risk just in the playing surface itself because it's so uneven, dry, wet, matted down, damp. So unfortunately, those injuries, while there has certainly been a lot of studies, I do think that, everything that I've read about it personally and professionally, it comes down to some of the infill, shoes, and kind of the way the foot pivots on the turf or the way the foot gets stuck in the turf.
Thank you. This has been very informative. Appreciate it.
Channel Commissioner Randolph, since I know what he would ask. The landscape plan, it looks like there's just one tree that is being removed on that western.
There's some existing vegetation along the buffer, but
so it's a significant net increase.
Yeah, it's a total of, I think it's 35 trees will be put in. There'll be evergreen trees, so you'll have perennial screening for the neighbors, and those, if you've seen those arborvitaes when they grow up, you're getting 20, 25 feet, and the spacing, like I said, that we've prescribed will allow it to grow and really, it'll form a proper hedge along the edge there. But yes, just the one single tree.
Commissioner Levy?
Yeah, how much of the fence will be replaced along the westerly side?
Essentially the length of the field itself. So it's somewhere in the magnitude of maybe 400 feet, 350 to 400, that range.
Questions? One last question.
Go ahead.
The And you're sure that there'll be no drainage issues on those homes as a result of the construction of this field?
Yes.
Final comments, questions? No, okay. All right, anything else for your initial presentation?
No, I don't think so. Just thank you very much, everyone.
Well,
Thank you.
public comment, anyone in the room wish to be heard on this item? Anyone joining remotely who wishes to speak on this item, please indicate in chat. Come on up. Can you just make way?
Nancy Haverly, Fairfield. I just have one question. Was this presented to the Board of Finance for 2 fields, or was it just for one being converted?
We have the answer to that. The applicant can respond when they come back.
Question is, I'm sorry, say that. You said, was it presented as 2 fields or 1 field to Board of Finance?
It was lined differently, but you go ahead.
Yeah, so it was presented as an L-shaped field, going up and then making that right-hand turn. So it was presented as 1 field. Since then, working with Kurt, we've discovered that by creating that grass area in between them, it's a savings of cost. Why turf an area that we're not going to end up using? So we've separated out the 2 sections that were originally presented. They've been separated by a grass swath there. But other than that, it's still the same project, same square footage that was presented to the Board of Finance.
So they're aware of the size and the
It's
difference.
the same size.
Yeah, it's
less
within the same-
turf, more
Actually, less turf.
Yeah.
Exactly. So so you saw the 2 fields like this, and then there's the grass strip in between. You just, took an eraser to that grass strip and then connected the turf. That's the essence of what was presented. It's
And
just.
I also,
I'm sorry, we start messing with the transcripts and records when we have back and forth. So any other questions, just let her ask all of them and then you can come back and answer them.
realize that.
No, it's okay.
And also I have health concern questions or concerns about the artificial turf, just in general. I've worried about it with all the fields we've converted over the years to turf. I just think, I understand there's complications with regular grass, but I also think, and you're talking about competitions and stuff like that and trying to keep up with the Joneses or whatever, but I think health issues are going to arise from this. And I'm not a scientist, but we're living in an environment where this country is collapsing, and I don't see how we can't see big picture on something like this. I think it's really not a good idea to just follow the trends, follow the sheep, I think it's dangerous. I just think it's dangerous. And thankfully I don't have a child who is playing sports, but I think it's a big concern. So I just wish that it was something that town would take more seriously. I think so that the world should take it more seriously. That's all. So thanks for listening.
What else wish to be heard on this? Mr. Mullen, anyone online?
Hang on 1 second. Just entered.
Neighbors notified us.
No, we do not.
Mr. Lowenstein, any response to those questions and then anything
Yeah,
else?
I'll close the loop on that just because, sorry, we're with the little back and forth there. So the first question was regarding Board of Ed, 2 fields versus 1 field. So what was presented to Board of Ed was that entire L-shaped field being converted to artificial turf. It is that, except there's a grass, a 30-foot grass strip in between what would be 1 uniform field. Square footage of turf wise is actually less turf than was presented, but again, same location. It's really a logistics and utilization of having the 2 separate fields versus 1, giant swath of artificial turf. And then the other concern regarding health issues, while yes, we're using the newest turf systems, artificial turf fields are not brand new by any means. They've been in existence in, upwards of 20+ years. While there are, injuries that have been reported with them, I'm not aware of any significant health issues that are resulting directly from the artificial turf fields themselves. Crumb rubber obviously has its own concerns, but not widespread health issues with artificial turf systems themselves. So while I respect her opinion in that, I don't think the concern of we might be putting something in that 10 years from now or 20 years from now, where our kids are going to be regretting it. I don't know if I agree with that characterization of the fields, because there's enough time, there's enough case study to look at of fields being in use, and there's hundreds of thousands of children that have been on using artificial turf fields, and there's not widespread health issues resulting from that. So I would just temper the concern of I'd say just keeping a balance as how we look at it from a health thing. There's risk to anything. Grass has pesticides, has fertilizer. There could be drawbacks that could be taken from any type of surface. So I don't know if that satisfies her question, but it's gonna like how we would look at these types of things. But other than that, I'm complete unless there's any other questions.
We're good. Thank you, Mr. Lowenstein.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Close the public hearing on that. Thank you. Moving on to 10 Sasco Hill Road, an application of Sasco 10 LLC for a special permit and coastal site plan review for construction of new portico, concrete entrance ramps with low retaining walls, reconfiguration of sidewalks and driveway entrances, and new landscaping in a defined commercial district.
How you doing, guys? Try to be quick here as it's got pretty late. My name is Garrett Wilson. I'm here on behalf of 10 Sasco LLC to present this application. A big portion of this project being built in 1985 is just exterior improvements and upgrades, specifically speaking. Windows, siding of the building, roof, as well as the parking lot enhancements, which also triggered a planting plan. A lot of these improvements are just due to the age, old rotten siding, rotten trim. This upper exterior railing is non-code compliant and it's rotten. There's roof access for some of the mechanical equipment. It needs to be replaced. One thing that is being added is the front portico. That's just basically for the tenants' safety rain. One of the other big improvement is as far as aesthetics. With a safety concern. Right now, entrance is both from Sasco Hill Road and the Post Road. The tenants have been complaining and it's been very dangerous for cars that kind of use this as a cut through with the stoplight over here.
Things pop out, so.
Oh, they do? Yeah. You can tell I don't do that a lot, right?
Yeah. There you go.
Hold on a second.
Is it possible to show this on the screen? I'm trying to figure out which one he's looking at.
Thank you.
Oh, it's.
All right, sorry, guys. they want to close off this entrance. It's been giving the blessing quote unquote from Connecticut DOT. It's going to improve the pedestrian access with a new sidewalk. And like I said, keep this remaining ingress and egress from Sasko Hill Road. It's not doing anything net to the parking lot. By that, I mean, they're not getting any parking spaces. They're not losing any parking spaces. We have a subsequent planting plan from Alexandra Monk, who's available remotely if you have any questions. What it's going to do essentially, and she could probably comment a little bit further. A lot of this existing landscape planting is a little bit overgrown and just, you know, kind of unsightly. We're going to be replacing all the windows and the siding, so we need some access to that. And there's also going to be a mitigation plan to remove the invasive species.
So those are trees on the corner?
This is plantings around the base of the foundation.
Foundation, okay.
Where's the actual work being done?
Most of it is on the actual building itself. The most substantial improvement is the front portico. So that's a portico, ADA accessible ramps. There's a small retaining wall for a planter.
And where have the complaints come from? What about the layout has led to complaints about safety?
The tenants, it's the entrance off of the post road is being used as a kind of quick cut through access. So when you're coming down the post road, I guess that would be easterly, and you get to the stoplight, it kind of backs up and people cut through the parking lot, which is fairly tight, and just kind of try to avoid the stoplight.
So they cut through to go from the post road to Sasko Hill Road?
That's correct. And then down like to the old post road.
And this is intended to prevent that?
The removal of that access, yes.
Okay. So there will be no access on the Sasko Hill Road?
There'll be no access from the post road. There's an ingress and an egress from Sasko Hill Road.
So you're cutting, oh, okay, that's interesting. So you're cutting, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that in the beginning. You're cutting off the access from the post road completely, no in or out.
Correct. It's also, I mean, it's difficult when you're going out that way because you can take a right kind of with traffic, but the stoplight's usually backed up and it's difficult to take a left most of the time.
So, and this is not too close to any of the houses to create a problem with, I guess, people trying to leave Sasko Hill Road that have more traffic now. If all the traffic for this development goes in and out of the Sasko Hill Road side?
The tenants largely don't use that.
Okay.
Because of the way it's backed up.
So now everybody will go in and out. And then the work you're doing on the land work, the river side, is that purely as a result of the requirements of DEP, and there's a conservation easement as well? Why would there be a conservation easement? Is there inland wetlands there?
So I may actually answer this question. Alexandra Mock, environmental consultant for the record. So yes, there's an easement which was actually enacted upon in September 30th, 1984. And here's the boundary of the easement. And this easement basically encloses the tidal wetland area going and portion of the lawn as shown by this line here. And the initial meetings with the town, I was not part of them, but there was a request that will restore this area. Portion of it, which is this portion, is all Phragmites. And then the outer portion, which is the upland area, is Japanese knotweed. Both of them are very invasive. And then also we have the tree of heaven which you may know from infestation of spotted lanternflies, which are also invasive insects, and they're multiplying very quickly, and they're causing a lot of damage to the landscape. So we are going to be removing all the invasive species. The invasive species removal plan was submitted. And then this area is going to be restored with native vegetation. And the lower area is going to be Spartina anteliflora, which is the natural place of the low marsh, and that's where it grows. Actually, this is going to be below the coastal jurisdiction line. And for that reason, as I was reading the reviews from the EP, they would like us to reach out to them, and I'm not sure whether or not they're asking us for filing a permit or just wanted to make sure that the restoration project is going to be conducted in the proper way. Above the Spartina alterniflora is going to be Spartina patens, which is the natural pattern of this vegetation. And then on the top, we have switchgrass, which is the high marsh. And I also read the review from the Conservation Commission, and Tim recommended that the high marsh, which we're only doing switchgrass, is going to be more diverse. And he was suggesting that maybe high tide bush, which usually is found within the high marsh, or some other like the seaside goldenrod and New England aster will be added to this planted area, and I don't think we'll have anything against that. And also, Tim asked whether or not we can remove those 5 tree of heaven. They were not originally in our invasive species control plan, but they are invasive, and I actually can see the benefit. We didn't want to remove those trees because this is all sloping down, and we're very close to a tidal section of the river, which is sometimes very dynamic. And we're a little bit about the slope stability during the control. But the request was made, and I think we have to comply with it. It looks like Conservation Commission is also going to be reviewing this project, because during the review it was discovered that the sidewalk was installed without Conservation Commission permits. So I'm going to be reaching out to Tim and talk to him as soon as possible, and see whether or not we have to file a permit with the Conservation Commission, or we can just do this at the staff level. So this will be all clear up. Also, the review of Jonathan, he suggested that because this is our ilex, and but not the native ilex in this location, that this shrub is going to be replaced with native. Now, the reason being why I actually chose this type of was because the windows are pretty low, and the native ilex, which is Ilex glabra or inkberry, it has a tendency to grow from 6 to 8 feet when it reaches its full potential for growth. And obviously, we don't want to plant shrubs, which will be then obstructing the windows, because the purpose of the window is to bring lights to the interior, not being obstructed by the landscape. So I did reach out to Tim and ask whether or not we can use Ilex glabra, which is a hybrid. It's not 100% native, but it's a hybrid. It's a mix of native Ilex glabra, which is actually more compact and lower growing. And I'm not sure whether or not I have to talk to him, or we can just modify this plan later after the commission approves it, because again, we have to go through the conservation, and we have to make sure that the revisions to the plan they suggested are going to be implemented. Other than that, I'm open to any questions.
So basically, there's dual jurisdiction of the DEP because you're working in the
Yes.
their jurisdictional area, and conservation, because there must have been at one time inland wetlands there. And so that's why I'm glad, well, that makes me feel good, because now we have two levels of environmental specialists looking over your shoulder, but all the work you're doing on the water side, is that sort of like a condition of doing the other work that you need to do?
Well, kind of it was, because when the project was introduced to the town, and again, I wasn't at the meeting, the town requested that we deal with the invasive species. And I went to the site and I'm like, oh my God, these are the most troublesome two, which is Japanese knotweed, almost impossible to deal with, and then Phragmites. And quite frankly, I'm a true environmentalist, and I never use chemicals when control invasive species. But because this is a commercial property, and also the fact that this is an public access and conservation easement, I was just worried that if we're going to do this manually, not only some people can get a little bit upset, it's like how long it's going to take, and then the effectiveness is going to be obviously a little bit less than just like coming and killing everything with a chemical. And then also I wanted to make sure that the public access is being maintained, and we're not going to be blocking the view when we're eradicating the invasive species. But there's a natural way of removing those two very difficult ones. And I did actually offer for Phragmites, it could be not really excavated because the root system goes 2 feet deep. But if you cut the base of the plant with the spade, which you have to sharpen actually, at the 45 degree, there is some magic to it that the plant actually loses the momentum and loses a lot of energy to regrow. Also, I've heard from DEP that the dam is going to be replaced or work on, and they warn us that the water level can actually rise, which is perfect, because I did a very successful project in Greenwich where we actually, the area of the Phragmites, which was underwater, if you cut it and the stem is still underwater, it remains at least for a month, then the Phragmites will start dying off because there is no oxygen flow, and the plant needs oxygen to function. So if the water is going to be increasing, and I'm not sure how high it's going to go, there's a potential that maybe the Phragmites, which is above the coastal jurisdiction line, is going to be flooded for long enough that we actually can naturally eliminate them just by cutting them very close to the base, and hoping that they're going to be all disconnected from oxygen. But probably we can't really count on it. But again, if there's any way of avoiding chemicals, I will really prefer that this is not going to be treated with chemicals, especially because we're so close to the water. But again, if we're not successful and it is a very tough weed, I think we're supposed to have a plan B, and the plan B would be the use of chemicals. With Japanese knotweed, I've been very successful with tarping it. So basically you take a tarp, you cut everything to the base as short as you can. You put a tarp over, and then you put 2 feet of wood chips and solarize for at least 3 years. Again, this is a public access. This is a conservation easement. I'm not sure how people will see a tarp. I mean, you're not going to see the tarp because the tarp is going to be covered by wood chips. So aesthetically, actually, this is going to not looking bad. But again, I'm not sure whether or not there wouldn't be complaints about it. So again, plan B is using the chemicals. And with knotweed, it's actually very easy because it has segments in the stem. And if you just cut on the top of the segment, there's like a little opening, almost like a cup within the stem. And if the plant is thirsty because it hasn't been raining for quite some times, and you ingest the poison just into this cup or the part of the stem, the the plant will absorb it and shoot it to the root system, and this could be very effective. Again, the main goal is not to pollute the soil, not to pollute the water, and not to do the foliar spraying because this is a disaster. I think we can also use injections. We can take a syringe and actually inject the poison with the syringe. So we can be very spot on. We don't really have to do big spraying and affecting the soil quality or chemistry. So
Thank you very much.
That's all
Oh,
I have
sorry.
to tell, and this is going to be further reviewed by DEP and Conservation Commission in terms of environmental issues of the plan.
Thank you.
Questions?
Commissioner Monahan. Keeping the existing signage and what about your lighting plan? Is that all?
Lighting's going to be replaced, same place. I don't know what he's going to do with the existing signage, honestly.
Just an awareness now that that's an entrance. So I think it'll just create a bit of confusion for some people who are used to getting into the building that way to have to.
I think this is on the, I think it's on the Sasco. This is on the Sasco hillside right here. It's 10 Sasco.
Yeah, I was just saying people coming around the other way are used to, when they can go in that way, it'll just be a learning curve.
Understood. Commissioner, I know you had that question about the, if it was a requirement for the planting plan. It was more of a discussion with the commission, I guess, or is everybody the commission? With him, the director, sorry, and a suggestion that the owner obviously took.
It's at the top of the building, and have you increased the height of the building?
No, chimney. This is a railing. What you can't tell is that these are parapet walls and it goes down about 24 inches. And that's where all this is kind of screening the AC equipment. So this is all rotted out and it's actually, like if you're there, it's too low to be an adequate railing. So it's going to be raised slightly.
Nice looking design.
One thing I did forget, some of these older dormers, they're being connected in the middle just to give it a little bit of a different look and utilize a tiny bit more space there.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone on this item wish to be heard? Mr. Mullen?
Yes, we have Matthew Hollick. Mr. Hollick, I've asked you to unmute.
Hi, how are you? I just sent the video too. I was just looking at, let's just remember that this building, this is one of the most historic corners in all of Fairfield, on the corner of Sasco and Route 1. I mean, it's bad enough it's not open to the public. It's nothing, there's no river access. There's no active recreation or passive recreation. There's no retail. It's an office. And it's not really the prime use for such a premier corner. In regards, like I said, I sent a video. If I could share my screen, I could show it. I emailed it to Jay Mullen here. But I went and visited that. There's no public access along the river there. It's all closed off. And if there was supposed to be an easement and public access to doing that, that has to be addressed. I mean, there's no path going down. There's no clam shack. There's no kayaking. There's no path along the river. There's nothing. They just have, like you said, they have those invasive species. They have the tree of heaven and the Japanese knotwood, which is kind of confusing because if you look at it, it's all like landscaped and nice. They've actually landscaped the Japanese knotwood, which it is, and it's a huge problem. It's a very invasive species, and it should come out immediately. I'm surprised the town hasn't ripped it out. But for all this work they're doing, they're turning it into their own little private estate there. And really, there needs to be some serious consideration for public access right there along the river on that office building. And as just a minor note too, speaking of like being a good neighbor, and closing off this entrance to Route 1 because they feel people are cutting through their parking lot. There used to be a UPS box in that parking lot that was heavily used. Everybody went to that UPS box and dropped it off, and it's gone now. And the rumor is that the building was responsible for moving that UPS box, and that's didn't go over well. That was really heavily utilized, and the fact that you didn't like the great unwashed driving through your parking lot to use the UPS box is bothersome. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else, Mr. Mullen?
No, there is not.
One last question. You know when the problem of people driving through the parking lot began? Is that a recent occurrence, given the road diet?
I know that this particular owner bought the building, I think approximately 3 years ago, and noticed it shortly after. I know it's our friend Chris Russo is there and complains about it as well. If he was here, I think he probably would comment.
Anything further from you? Go ahead.
Yeah, just a question raised by Mr. Halleck. Does the conservation easement provide for public access, and will that be restored?
So I may actually address this because I did read the conservation easement language, and it was again posted in 1984. So it is kind of a long, old language, because those days we specify what's allowed, how it's supposed to be maintained, and all of it. But basically, it's describing that this area is meant to be for passive recreation. There shouldn't be any, for fishing, yes. But not for kayaking, not for boating, and just for walking, watching birds, admiring the beauty of the area. It's like very passive, not really something which will be accommodating sports and like more intensive recreation.
Is there currently access?
Yes, there's an access. There's a actually sidewalk, which or a path, which I showed it to you when I was describing the planting plan, going through the lawn, which now the Conservation Commission is claiming that it was not approved and needs to be approved by them. So there is actually access. So if you would like to walk to the back all the way to the water, you'll be able to do it. The only thing which will prevent you from doing it is the current vegetative cover. It's very hard to get through 10+ feet Phragmites.
Thank you. I don't know that you guys would permit a clam shack either.
No, that was not part of it. That's not allowed by the restrictions.
Yeah, anything further?
No, I think Alexandra had mentioned there was comments from conservation and DEP. I believe you saw comments and suggested conditions of approval from the director.
So we're good. All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing on this item.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
So Commissioner Braun, I'll just note, it's obviously we're past our curfew. Commissioner Braun and Commissioner Monahan submitted a document this afternoon around 3:40. So I don't know if folks had a chance to review, but it includes updated, refined maps, and there was a memo accompanying that. So suggest that the commission review those maps. I think Commissioner Braun, I believe the next time you're going to present, you want to give a little presentation on that?
Yeah,
right?
actually, I had a thought. I appreciate that. I know it's after hours now, but we set this in late in the day. But we have created one of the 4% districts, because once we use the better software, we were able to carve out areas that weren't needed. But it does require discussion by the commission, and it also enabled us to confine the 4% district to the area, including a lot of Southport, Post Road, and part of the beach area. So it was pretty nice to be able to do that. But again, that requires discussion and also discussion over the second district, so which we have not created yet. So yeah, I would love to do that. Can we possibly have Mark Barnhart come? Because I spoke to him and I know Commissioner Randolph spoke to him. And he mentioned that there will be a parking study done at some point, and it would be great to get some updates from him on a whole bunch of stuff related to parking, overflow, things like that. Do you think we could specially schedule this? If not for the next planning meeting, then at some point in early June? So that we
What
can all
kind
be here?
can you just provide some, by email, some indication of
Sure.
what input you're looking for so we can
Yeah, absolutely.
forward that to him and make sure if he's not the right person to answer to provide that, we can figure that out. Sounds like you mentioned a couple of things there, but if you
Yeah,
just.
I have like a laundry list of.
Yeah. All right, so we will,
And there's also a meeting, I think, on the 11th of June.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know if one has been scheduled. I've heard, I saw part of that meeting, but I'm not aware that it's actually been
That
scheduled.
was Board of Finance meeting you're talking about?
Yeah.
He said he doesn't believe it's been scheduled yet.
Not as, I could have been, but not as far as I know. I saw the end of that meeting, but.
Are we invited to that meeting, or like we've had joint meetings with affordable housing? Is that sort of a joint meeting?
That's not how it was described in the meeting that I saw as a joint meeting. I know what you're talking about. But I think one of the, maybe my first week on the commission, we had a joint meeting with affordable housing, but that's not how it was described in the meeting.
Okay.
It just indicated that there may be some concern about businesses already operating downtown, not having adequate parking. If we don't exercise our authority to remove the 8%, 4% in two areas.
Yeah, there was some
undue pressure on the downtown merchants and downtown businesses, and also put some pressure on the town to build parking garages and the like, which could cause, of significant.
I saw there was a member of the Board of Finance who seemed to be operating on the same bad info that I see a lot of folks going by. The incorrect claim that we only have until July 1st to implement these districts or we lose that ability forever, which again, for anyone watching, is not accurate. And I think there's another, suggested that maybe he was under the impression that there's actually a proposal to build a parking garage, which there's not.
Well, there's no deadline to adopt it, but we will start receiving applications as of July 1.
I'm glad you said that. There is a lot of content out there suggesting that there is a deadline to adopt it. Many of the public comments we received were repeating that. That was what the gentleman at the Board of Finance meeting said. Many of the comments out there say explicitly that if we don't adopt these districts by July 1st, then we lose the ability forever, and that's just untrue.
That we will start to see applications.
So that's a separate suggestion. What I'm saying, I'm 100% sure. I've seen this, I've heard it, it's out there. There's no dispute about the fact that people are putting this in writing and saying that if we do not do this by July 1st, that we lose the ability forever. And that's just.
We will see applications starting July 1.
Flat out not true. So just for the record, just so everyone's clear, just to address one piece of concern, obviously folks have other concerns, but that's one we could dispel. So Commissioner Braun, I don't know if you're going to present this jointly or if Commissioner Braun, you're going to present it on behalf of the House. But.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And I agree. There's no deadline in terms of we'll lose our ability, but the urgency is because we sort of want to have this in place so we don't have to deal with it on July 1st. Because on July 1st, we no longer can require any parking at all for up to 15 units unless we do have some zones which protect our ability to have parking. So that goes into effect. So that's the urgency I feel. I hope no one misinterpreted anything I said as saying there's a deadline beyond which we can no longer preserve it.
Yeah, and I wasn't describing that to you. I've just.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks.
So, all right, well, we'll continue this discussion.
Can I ask one more thing?
Yep.
So when will this be discussed at the next meeting? It's always the last item and we never get to it.
We have to get to other items. We've had, I think this now, we've had 3 discussions of this, and we have other business. We have, actually. We've had 3 discussions of this. I'm not counting today because I know this wasn't a full public hearing, but this has been discussed several times and we'll continue to discuss it, but we have other business that we need to get to also.
This is a priority.
And we have other priorities as well. We have lots of
Will
priorities.
this be on the planning meeting next week then, I assume? Because the first
Yes.
Tuesday of every month is a planning meeting. It seems appropriate to have it
Yes.
then. That'd be great. And maybe, so who invites I'll send you an email with my questions anyway for Mr. Barnhart.
And can we move it up on the agenda?
Potentially. Okay, thank you. And we'll adjourn for this evening. Thanks, everyone.